Hello, everybody. My name is Lewis Lee from All Ends Media, and this is Playing in Traffic. And I'd like to welcome everybody in YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. If you have any comments or anything you want to ask Steve, please feel free to hit us in the chat room, and we can see all the chats from all the different platforms. Ray?
Yeah, hi, Lewis. Pleasure to be back on again this week. Ray from Motormouth Radio, and it's a pleasure to have Steve Magnante on with us. Steve, just so if people want to check the cross promotion stuff, we had you on the radio show. You were our first guest this year on January 17th, I believe it was. So people could go to motormouthradio.com and listen to that. And then they compare it and see if we did a better job here or a better job there. So it's a pleasure.
Well, great to be here. Yeah, really good to be here.
Yeah. You're definitely a fan favorite. I'll tell you that. Whenever we mention that we're going to have you on, the comments start and like, ask them this, ask them that, ask them this, ask them that. People always want to, they have tons of questions. So hopefully we'll have an active night tonight. Okay. And I know you want to freeform it, so that's fine.
Yeah, I got a lot of questions on Facebook too. They were real excited that you were coming on. Let me see. Let me put the chat on. Can you guys see it?
I don't see
it. Here we go.
Anything.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, I see Jim LaStella and hey, Matt Coleman.
Matt Coleman. Hey, Matt Coleman, Brian.
Matt Coleman. Okay, so if anybody has any questions, please feel free to jump in. So, Steve, how'd you start out in this business? Like, what got you into the car scene?
Well, when I was a little kid, I was born in 1964. I like to say the years the Mustang and the 426 Hemi entered the world. But so I'm 56. But ever since I was probably about 5 or 6 years old, my mom would buy me Matchbox cars. Things like this, little Matchbox cars. I'd come home, get off the school bus, and there'd be a Matchbox car waiting for me and my brother Dave. And so, within a half an hour, I'd managed to trade my brother for his Matchbox for a bag of M&Ms or something like that. So that led to model cars by the time I was 17 or 18. And along the way, I discovered a stack of old Superstock, Carcraft, Hot Rod, Motor Trend, vintage magazines. At that point, 1977 or so, these magazines were only 10 years old. But in 77, you got to remember the OPEC crisis, the downsizing of Detroit, the emissions era, black horrible times really with cars being detuned and everything like that. So there were bad days. So basically, these magazines were 10 years old, but it seemed like they were from a million years earlier. So I get into magazines, and that was kind of that led to wanting to write for magazines. So then that, of course, led to 1999. I got a job working for Hot Rod magazine after I moved to California, and that was something I did for 7 years. So 7 years on staff at Hot Rod was an amazing time, and everything I do now is because of that. So yeah, just cars are pretty much everything I do now.
Nice. So, how many seasons do you have in Junkyard Gold?
Well, Junkyard Gold has 3 seasons, and we were just about to go into season 4 when COVID hit back in March of 2000, and that led to it kind of derailed the train. We ended up taking time off, and it's unclear if Motor Trend is going to do any more seasons. So at this point, there are 31 episodes that they're running the heck out of on Motor Trend and also on Motor Trend On Demand. But since the merger with Discovery Channel, things have really, really changed. So I'm not really sure what's next for Junkyard Gold, if they're going to do more. My contract reads that if they don't renew it, I have to stay out of junkyards with a camera until September 1st.
Oh, no.
Well, put it this way. I mean, after September 1st, I'm going to find a way to do more shows. And, it's free of I'll do it on my own way. So, yeah. We'll see how it turns out. Hopefully Motor Trend will see the light and they'll do more. But right now it's silence from Motor Trend, so I don't know what's going on, but it's okay.
Then again, I mean, you had some good opportunities with them. We've seen you ride a bicycle, a horse.
That's right.
I've seen a lot of crazy stuff, which is great. I mean, it really portrays your personality.
Yeah.
Very well. Very good.
Well, it's a lot of fun to do, and I love junkyards, and I think we all love cars, but the one thing we don't like about them is they don't talk. So we have to give them a voice. Wouldn't it be great if you could put your ear next to the fender of a car? It would whisper to you, who bought it new, how many kids they had, if it ever went to the prom, or whatever. All these things that cars did, but they can't tell you about. So oddly, we have to give them a voice as either writers or talking about them on camera. So. Yeah.
Steve, I'll say this. getting older, getting on in years in life now. I've been thinking about, mortality and all of this, like we all do. And one of the things I started doing was along that lines. I have a pretty extensive vinyl record collection that dates back, long time. And as I listen to the records, I've been leaving Post-it notes in them for my kids, who'll hopefully find them years from now and see what my thoughts were, and then
yeah.
little nuggets. But now I've also thought about writing a story about my car, a Pontiac I've owned since 1975, and finally just got the thing painted and redone this past year. And I was thinking about the car needs a story because, like you said, it can't talk.
Yeah.
And when I'm gone, who's going to know what the deal was? No one's going to know. So I think I have to write that car's story and then leave it with it, kind of like as a like a diary.
Yeah.
That's a good idea because that will give your family members more respect for it. Because a lot of guys, pass away and their kids just, give the car away or their wives. Yeah. So if there's a note with it, it might lead to somebody else in the family keeping the car or,
I mean, my immediate family knows. And it was funny because even my kids, they're older now. And when I did a rolling restoration. I didn't do it like everybody. I couldn't afford to do it like the big guys do. So I drove it as I restored it, which was great because it stayed on the road longer. And when I got all the mechanicals done and, the body back together and started driving it, my older daughter went for a ride with me and, no interior except for a couple seats. It was noisy. I'm banging gears. There's rocks hitting everything. It just sounded great. It was like so visceral. And she said, wow, she goes, I just can't believe that we're riding in this car. And I'm like, yeah, it's pretty cool. You rode in it when you were little, But she says, no, I saw how it was all apart. And she said, not that I ever doubted you, Dad. She goes, but I never thought that it would all go back together and become a car again. I was like, oh, come on, do that in my sleep. That's what we do. But for her, that was a whole realization of, wow, this pile of parts, will it ever run again? And so that was good. I thought that was a milestone to see. Like that kind of just basically solidified at least that Dad knows what he's doing.
I had the same thing happen when I did my motorcycle. Mm-hmm. My son walks in the garage one day and he sees the wiring harness hanging on the wall. And he looks at me and goes, Dad, you need to go buy another bike. Let's go to the shop, buy another bike. And I was like, man, put this back together. What are you talking about?
Right.
So he really appreciates it now that it's on the road, So, yeah.
Sure. Yeah. So in little ways, we do that. But you're right, Steve. That was one of I think the best quotes I ever heard from you about how you have to give cars a voice. It's very true.
Yeah. And better than a voice. We just got done with Barrett Jackson 2 weeks ago. We were in Scottsdale, and it was a great auction. I mean, amazing monies was changing hands. So, I mean, people are definitely putting life first, I think, and coming out of the cocoon of, being in COVID, and they're buying cars. I mean, no matter what it is, it seemed like it sold for a lot of money, which is fine. But as we talk about the cars, they do deserve more than a guess. And, we've all known television broadcasters who are pretty good at doing what they do. And some are maybe not so great, but it comes down to preparation. You got to make some notes so that, when that car pulls up on the block, you have a sense of what it is so that you say that thing while it's on the block instead of wishing you did when it's rolling off the block. Yeah. So again, a little preparation goes a long way. So yeah, giving the car a voice, but also, doing more than guessing with the car is kind of our responsibility as broadcasters and writers to the best of our abilities.
I was working at the shop today. One of my friends, the guy who owns the place, I was explaining to him that you were coming on tonight, and I gave him a little bit of your histrionics about the auction because you had told us that on the radio show years ago. I had asked you, how do you know so much about this stuff? And you told us that you did research and you had cards, which makes sense. And I said, that's professionalism right there. That's doing the right job and doing justice to the product. I said, I know, like with Steve Varsha, these, and the other guys, they were good with the foreign stuff, and they would always throw you the resto mods. Right. And I said, and Steve can do what like any of us can do. Look at it and say, oh yeah, it's a small block Chevy Gen 3. That looks like a 704R. Look, oh yeah, it's got a 9. It's got a 4 9-inch in the back. I mean, that's the gravy stuff. We could all do that, but when you do it the way you do, people who don't know so much think, God, he's a genius. Which is great.
Well, I do in my right hand. I have the microphone usually. My left hand, I have a little notebook, and that notebook is something I prepare in the week and a half to 2 weeks before the auction. And I'm sitting right here at my computer, And I go online to the Barrett Jackson website and I look at our lot window, like if we're on the air from lot 302 to 497 or whatever it might be. I ignore the cars before and after that time because there's no point, we're not on TV. But during that time, I look at each car and say, oh, that's a 3-speed GTO. That's kind of weird. 3-speed manual. Which one was it? The light duty or the heavy duty on the column shift or the floor shift, the M13? So that sort of thing. So yeah, I definitely, I have my little notepad, and I always say that, you should always fill your library before you fill your garage, and prepare, when you're talking about a car. So, I used to have this fear way back when I've been doing Barrett Jackson for 16 years, but early on, Jay Leno was part of the thing, and there was some talk about getting us on the Jay Leno show or doing something like that. And I had nightmares that Leno would get me on his show and he'd say something, okay, Steve, paint code D93. What is it? Like, I don't know. And I would go down in flames. But, and by the way, I'm good at memorizing stuff, but paint codes and stuff like that, I don't try to remember that stuff because it's trivial to my brain. But I know where to look. And when the time is, when the time is right, you got to know. I know where to look, and I make sure I don't guess.
That's actually what helped me land the job years ago, where they asked me some very technical questions. What would you do hypothetically if you had to fix this piece of gear or this equipment, and and you've only seen it once or twice? And I said, well, I certainly don't know everything about every piece of equipment in the place that I work with. I said, but I do know how to read. I do know how to diagnose. I do know how to read schematics. I said, if there's a manual available, I'm going to sit down with it, and I'm going to, and like that was the answer. That was the right answer, So because we don't know it all, none of us do.
Right.
But I know a lot of people who don't care enough to even look and don't know where to look. I was looking through I'm working on restoring a 64 Caddy at the shop, and this one threw me for a loop. I have to find somebody who knows. Maybe you will, Steve. I was looking for the procedure on how to adjust the neutral safety switch, and I found a passage that said, refer to section 10, note 4. So I go to section 10, it's electrical, and in the index, there was nothing that said notes. I'm looking for like footnotes or something. And of course, you go to number like the, 10-4, which is section 4 of subsection 4 of section 10. And that wasn't it. And I looked in the back. I couldn't find notes anywhere. And this was the factory, the FSM, the factory service manual from Cadillac. I got to find somebody who's smarter than me, who knows what that means, because I couldn't figure it out.
Huh. Wow. Well, it could be sometimes the revisions to the factory service manuals and maybe pages that are torn out or cut out. Maybe that happened. Don't know. And again, factory service manuals aren't always perfect. Sometimes, because people write them. And I remember when I was at Hot Rod Magazine, I was there for 7 years, 77 issues I helped to create. But we'd always have this sort of roundtable with proofreading to make sure no typos got out. Well, every issue, there was at least one little typo. And it just, so maybe that happened with the Cadillac service manual.
Possibly. But it just goes to show that, when you think you have it knocked, you don't, and it's like, even when you have the best material in front of you, sometimes, you don't have everything you need. So like you can't see it, but I'm in a library right now. I literally have 1,000 books around me that are just, all car related stuff. That's, and it's the go-to. It's like, go back to those manuals. The paper now it's like gold. It really is, because so I buy the stuff at swap meets, and people they give me stuff, they give me books because not everything is digitized,
Well, we start to get a little lazy with the internet, and I'm coming to find out that a lot of stuff that you really need is wrong on the internet. So going back to the books is a for sure thing almost,
right?
Except for your case with the with the safety neutral.
That was an oddball thing, like you said, there may have been a revision to that manual that I'm not aware, but it was printed, go section 10, note 4, and section 10. I saw that a few other times in the book. I started leafing through, and I don't know. I must be. And there's a guy at the shop who actually worked for Cadillac back in the early 70s. So I grabbed him. I said, "Hey, John, get over here." I said, "Look at this book." I showed him the thing. I said, "What does note 4 mean?" And I went to the section, and he goes like, "Wow, I don't remember ever seeing that. I never came across that." So whatever. But
well, if anybody knows out in the TV land or internet land, let us know.
Well, the I'll tell you what the takeaway was. The problem with this car was the neutral safety switch wasn't good, so I couldn't start the car with the key. I jumped the switch, I jumped the plug, and of course I got it to work. But the switch has a vacuum pot on the back. It's got You plug in the neutral safety switch and the reverse lights to that switch, which is typical for GM. But there's a vacuum pot, because with Cadillac, I remember this from my 65, you set the parking brake, and when you start the car, when you take it out of park into reverse, that vacuum switch releases the parking brake. So you don't have to touch the lever.
Yes.
So what we did is we got a standard switch from just any size, full-size GM. I had to massage the bracket, make the holes a little bigger. And I said, okay, now the guy's got neutral safety and there's reverse lights, but there's no. You go to eBay, you're looking. We found the switch online, $450 a guy wants.
Wow.
They're on a premium. I said, look, if the owner wants to spend that kind of money, fine. But here's the workaround for $20.
Right.
Mm-hmm. I forget what car I had, and the emergency brake was on, and I couldn't figure it out. I'm like, what? Where's the release? And then somebody said, put it in drive, and I put it in drive, and it popped up. I'm like, oh my goodness. I could have been stuck for hours.
If you remember what kind of car that was, let me know, because I know the Caddies had. Somebody said maybe some of the Oldsmobiles had that feature.
I think it was my old Cutlass. I think it was like a 73. Okay.
Wow, up to 73. Okay.
Yeah, it might have been that car.
Steve, I could see 150 oddball electrical facts coming up, right? Like a new book. It's amazing what you see when you start doing restoration on older cars, the things that are just oddball.
Yeah, technological advances that were the best given the technology of the day. Vacuum canisters versus microchips like we have today, and of course, vacuum canisters rust and burn on the car. So it is one of those things where you sort of have to think in 3D and maybe think like the engineer. When you tackle an older car or a new one for that matter. But
I remember years ago working on a friend's 50. I think it was a 50 Lincoln. And the car had hydraulic power windows. It was actually fluid going to. Like, who the hell ever thought of that one?
Yeah, it's funny. We did an episode at a place called Cadillac King out in Palmdale, California. 2 episodes out there, and I remember looking at some early Cadillacs, and on the firewall was a glass jar with an electric motor underneath it. When you see that means you're looking at hydraulic power windows, power seats. And again, that was the days when hydraulic fluid, basically a brake fluid, mineral oil, I think is what it is. But they were pumping that stuff through the car, through the doors and everything like that to run the. So when it starts leaking, of course, then it eats the paint and rust starts happening inside of the doors. But again, when this stuff's new, it works great. But that's the thing. It doesn't stay new forever. You got to keep up with it.
They did that on purpose so you buy a new car.
You got to wonder. Yeah, planned off.
I mean, whoever thought that 50, 60, 70 years later, people would be restoring these things?
Yeah, right.
That was never the intent.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of the car hobby, that we're still bringing cars alive that are that old. I mean, they don't seem that old to us because we grew up with them. We drove them. They were you buy those cars for a couple $100. If I knew that then, I mean, I parted out a lot of stuff from a lot of cars. And I got the parts to prove it. But if I knew that something like that would be worth $450, man, I would have been grabbing those things all day.
Right. Well, the big thing is you look at that site on eBay and says, how many does he have and how many has he sold? And is that the asking price? And the reality is he's probably going to have that part for a long time.
It actually gave me a note for the radio show. I want to talk about this because I thought about this and I said, that guy, I don't know how many other parts he has like it. I'll assume he's a collector, so he probably has some cherry-picked stuff.
Yeah.
If he doesn't sell that stuff before he dies, he loses.
Yeah.
And now I was just telling my wife today, we went for a walk, and I said, hey, that's where selling a little for a little less, taking less of a profit, but moving the merchandise is the way to go, because at least you're going to get something. You don't want to be the holdout and be the guy, the last man standing. And
well, here's another thing too. You're helping somebody bring back something old. Keeping it running.
You're right.
Yeah.
So that's.
Lewis, you're right. And that, we've talked about this on this show, and I've talked about it on my show. I'm at the point in my life now where I give things to people. I give it away. It's like, you know what? And especially if they're younger, like younger guys, there's a couple of like I'm giving them tools and equipment and gauges and things like, here, take this stuff and just, put it to use, or you keep it somewhere for, because I don't want to be buried with it. Just pay it forward. That's how I look at it.
Yeah. I have a guy here locally. He has probably 40 cars on his lot, and it's like a car lot, old car lot, from 40s to maybe earlier than that, from the early 30s to the 60s, and these cars are sitting there rotting away.
Wow.
And if you go talk to him, he'll cuss you out. He's like, hey, you want to sell? Oh, no, I'm going to fix these.
Right.
And he's in his 80s.
I'm going to restore it someday.
Yeah, so I'm thinking, he's going to die, and his family's going to come in and junk it all, and somebody could have had one of those cars back on the road.
Yeah.
That's why I've always told my wife and my kids, I tell them, listen, the parts I collected for a reason. They have some intrinsic value to somebody. I said, and the stuff that made it into the house in the basement, that's really the good stuff, because I don't want it outside in the shed or in the garage. And I told her, I said, listen, if I get hit by a bus one day, not Lewis's bus, but some other bus.
I drive bus too.
Oh, you do? Okay, yeah. Very cool.
I told her, I said, all the hobbies that I'm involved in, my Aurora cars, my Matchbox cars, my models, my car stuff, my gun stuff, my records. I said, and what you don't want to keep, which friends of mine share those hobbies. You call them in and either work out a deal with them and sell the stuff. I said, or give it to them. Just let them have it. I said, because at least they'll go to somebody who shares that, that hobby. I said, don't throw the stuff away.
Yeah.
I said, I'll come back and haunt you. That's all. I'm just gonna, I'll be the ghost with the chains.
So, Steve, when you were out at Barrett, what was your favorite car out there? Did you see something that just really jumped out?
Well, I mean, the big deal, of course, was the Shelby Super Snake, which sold for like $5 million for the third time, I think, Now, that's an interesting car. I mean, it's not something I'll ever own or, think about owning. I'll build it in 1/25th scale, maybe. But that was a neat car. But with that said, my favorite, the pick of the litter this minute anyway, it was a 1963 Plymouth Sport Fury Max Wedge. It was an original car in every way. It was a torque flight push button car, and very original. Sold for $62,000, which is a bunch of money, but at the same time, for what that car was, it was a very, very good purchase. That was a neat car that sold. And the funny thing is, about a half an hour afterwards, a 63 Fury with a 440 Edelbrock aluminum heads, big like 18-inch wheels, sold for $52,000. And so $10,000 separates the Restomod from the original Max Wedge car. So I'm not going to say that like in the real world at the swap meet, that kind of thing is going to happen. But it was surprising that the Max Wedge sold so lightly and that the hot rod sold so well, because the first gen B bodies, the 62 through 65 cars, are in sort of a lesser area than the 68 Roadrunners, the 71 Chargers, well, even the 68 through 69 type B bodies. Those are the ones people seem to really want, the Chargers, the Roadrunners, GTXs, and the first gen cars. So $52,000 for a 63 Plymouth, which is a weird car. The ultimate weird one is the 62 Plymouth and the 62 Dodge, those crazy looking things. But $52,000 for kind of a hot rodded one was surprising, and 62 for a Max Wedge was surprisingly low. So that happened. But that's my thing. I can't tell you what my favorite car is because it changes by the time I'm done describing it.
Yeah, it's the thing, and I don't know. I have my thoughts on it too. Like the auction crowd, that's not us. Obviously, we don't have that kind of dough. And I think these guys buy on a whim. It's like, hey, this year I'm going to buy the oddball cars. Not everybody's name is Staluppi. It's like they can't just go in and say, hey, I'm here to take like at least 30 cars home. So maybe that's the thing. Some guy had a whim to just buy some oddball. Want the Ward Cleaver car. Let's buy one of those.
Well, Kevin Hart was there. Did you see that? Where Kevin and his buddies were there, and he bought a 62. 59 Corvette, mint green, beautiful car, $850,000.
Wow.
He was bidding against somebody else. He wasn't going to let it go. When he finally got it, the guys went crazy. It was a great moment, and a funny guy, but a big car collector too. Big car collector. So that was an interesting moment. The celebrity factor at Barrett's, it's cool. And I will say that, Barrett Jackson, it's realistic. And yet, a lot of people say, well, a car just like this one sold at Barrett for $3 million. So mine's got to be worth, 2.9. Right. Well, the reality is, it's an interesting atmosphere because people there generally have very deep pockets. And, so at the Pomona swap meet, that's where you really get the feet on the ground sense of what used cars and cars sell for. I think equally important, those numbers.
That has come to be the new determinant. Barrett sold to Barrett Jackson. Just like used to be like, I saw it on eBay for X amount of money. It's like, you know what are you going to get for today? Cash in hand, That's what it's worth.
I do hear some people saying stuff like, well, those darn TV auctions, they're ruining the hobby. the other side of that coin, I left Massachusetts in 1991, moved to California, and spent 17 years there. And when I got to California, there were Unical and companies like that were sponsoring crush campaigns, and vintage cars were being called clunkers. And you get $600 for bringing in your old Camaro. Yes, a '67 Camaro was brought in for crushing, and Rob Kinnan from Hot Rod saved it. That's the Camaro at Hot Rod, that yellow car. So, I mean, it used to be that vintage cars were called clunkers. Eyesores, get them off the road. So, hey, if the auctions are jacking the prices up, at least they're not being crushed and wholesale destroyed anymore. So, and I think in the reality of things, when you go to buy that GTX or that 442, whatever it is, it's going to be between you and the seller and the money in your pocket and what they really want. So, it's good that the auctions have brought the prices up somewhat, but I think the reality of things, at least the cars aren't being called smog, gross polluters. Remember that term, gross polluter? Clunk. Oh man, nasty words. And then, thankfully the older cars are now being seen as investments, and they should be,
Right. I just got a call this week from the local president of the Olds Club, and he's a friend of mine. He was put in touch with this gentleman who he has a '66 Oldsmobile F85. I saw the car. It's at a local body shop. Very patinaed green paint.
Two-door?
A four-door.
Okay.
And he was inquiring whether, and the guy's not a car guy, so he was inquiring whether, like, what he should do as far as the restoration on the car goes. And we asked some questions, and it ends up that he threw the trump card down. It was his grandfather's car. So he said, okay, now as a family attachment, all bets are off,
Yeah.
But he's already, figured this out. He already had the floors fixed.
Yeah.
And he said he's already had four-wheel disc brakes put on it.
Oh.
And he wants to put a dual exhaust on it. And he wants to change from a 2-barrel to a 4-barrel. I'm like, so you're not restoring this car, dude. You're like, you're changing it. Yeah. And the question is, of course, this car isn't worth what a 2-door would be. It's just a 4-door grocery getter. We've seen those tier cars coming up now. Like, guys who couldn't afford the Chevelles went for the Malibus or for the 300s. So I'm all in about restoring the car. But this guy's going to contact me. We're going to have a heart-to-heart about what his aspirations are and should be. I don't think he knows what kind of money he's in for I found that the last 5 to 10% of a restoration costs almost as much as the rest of it, because you're down to that real finished stuff, the stuff that makes a lot of money. Yeah. And then, like, I did this on my own car, all the stainless, have that stuff polished. I was just handing the guy hundreds, thousands, just literally just walking it over and said, you keeping track of this? Well, yeah, I am somewhere, but I'm never going to look at it because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Like, you want the car done, so you got to pay the price. Yeah. But I don't know if this guy is going to be into that. And I've seen guys like this coming into the hobby thinking, oh yeah, well, I've seen it on TV or I've seen it here or there and other guys do it. But I think they have no idea what they're in for. I'm all for a nice, clean, middle of the road driver.
Yeah. And that F85, that was the entry level for the A body. The Cutlass, of course, would be the higher one. Cutlass Supreme, 442, etc. And the F85s quite often had rubber floor mats, rated elite, and little hubcaps. They're wonderful cars. Sometimes it can be more. Sometimes that's what it was.
Yeah. So, as I see as the hobby changes, and maybe TV may change people's opinions or may give them different opinions on things of what can and can't be done or how fast it can't be done. I want to tell people, look, come hang out at the shop and just watch and see what happens. Like when you gotta go through this rat's nest of wire that's not labeled, and you have to use a 50-year-old schematic, and try and figure out
with coffee stains on it.
It's like, it'll take, that's the beauty. At work, I have the ability to print on a plotter. So I'll take the schematics, scan them, and I can print them on E-size paper, which is like 36 by 48. And I'll put that up and say, okay, now I can follow it. Use a crayon. But just the amount of hours that go by with what seems like mindless stuff, but it's just that restoration process, figuring out what's what, figuring out what the last guy did, figuring out where the missing parts go.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Speaking of parts, I see on the chat column here a fellow named Jim LaStella he says here, I always thought the higher prices for classic cars keeps the aftermarket for repro parts going. And he's so right. Thankfully, companies like Auto Metal Directs and Classic Industries, they're making brand new bodies now for Mustangs and Camaros. And, it's an amazing thing. You can buy a brand new shell with no rust. And in fact, they're blueprint correct, and they're even thicker metal than the original stuff. So it is true that, the good old days are kind of right now in terms of everything you need to restore a car. I remember back in the early 1980s, remember Sherman and Associates, they made solar panels, and they were okay for their time. But I remember they were really thick, and you could tell a guy would put the quarters on his Charger using reproduction parts because we're thick and wavy, and almost should have left the rust. But today's stuff is just so good that we're living in the best of times right now. And thankfully, cars that would have been written off, 10 or 20 or 30 years ago are now restoration candidates. And hooray.
I will say this too. I know I speak for myself. When I did my own car, I used as many original parts and repurposed them. I didn't want to use a lot of reproduction stuff. And I did use AMD bumpers because to replate my chrome bumpers for my Pontiac was going to cost me almost $2,000 or more. And I got the AMD ones. I think I paid $600 for the pair. They look beautiful, but as soon as you take them out of the box, you could feel they're lighter. They're not as heavy as the. So great for drag racing. That's good. It's like their acid dip. But so again, you have to pick and choose what makes you happy. And I'm kind of against those cars that are built out of restoration parts, because how much of it is the real car now? It's catalog stuff. So I'm a big fan of using the old stuff, even if it means, like I said, blast it, paint it, repurpose it. I took all my bolts, all the body bolts, and blasted them, tumbled them, and then I black nitride them. So even for that, I said, at least it's the original stuff. Not that it really matters to anybody else, but like I said, everybody has their own buy-in.
Mm-hmm.
But
so what we're gonna do is I'm gonna let some other people on the screen, and then they ask you questions. The man Terry in.
There he is.
Right.
Terry.
What is going on? What is going on? Mr. I call him Mr. Motor Trend. How you doing, buddy?
Good. Thanks for being here.
Well, thank you. I followed you with your model cars.
Yeah.
You're really into that, and he's an East Coast boy. Yeah.
Massachusetts. I brought a model car.
Oh man, what's going on, right? What's going on, Lewis?
Sir?
I know what Brian's thinking. We got Macro Man Brian. I know what he's thinking without even talking to him. Terry, you got to ask Steve your question.
I'm going to ask Steve the question.
Brian, nod if I'm right. Is that yeah, there you go. He's right.
But before I do, I'm going to keep my fingers crossed because I think I got a good one here. I got a good one. All right. Steve, what is your favorite Tri-5? What year? 55, 56, or 57?
Well, I want to say 57 because the fuel injection came along and so many cool things at 283. But the 55 to me is the purest, and it's the most significant because that was the car that destroyed the 54, 53, and 52 potato mobiles that were kind of bloated and stuff, and really brought a whole new thing. The 56 is kind of, I don't know, I said this on the show a couple of weeks ago at Barrett Jackson. The round headlights and the square directionals directly under them fight for the same space, and it looks like an afterthought. The 57 is a different creature. So I go 55, 57, 56. Oh no.
Yeah, you gave Terry hard. He can't get any love. No love for our boy Terry, even though we all love him.
What's your take on those?
Well,
I'll hear me out. It's like the Three Bears.
Yeah.
The 55. I mean, don't get me wrong. You give me one in my driveway, I'm happy camper.
Right.
55 kind of looks a little too plain.
Oh,
looks a little too plain. I mean, it's a nice looking front end, but it just looks a little too plain. Then you got the 57.
Okay.
You got the 57 with those bumpers and the wings. It's just a little over the top, but then you got that 56. It's just a beautiful car, and I'm never going to ask this question again because
yes, you are. Yes, you are.
We've been doing it for years, and yeah, Terry's always in the little. Yeah, what are you going to do? Anyway,
56. But I tell you what, I was listening to what you guys were talking about as far as restoring a car, because I'm restoring a couple cars now. And I got a '69 Le Mans, which I just picked up, and I'm going to make it a GTO clone, of course.
Nice.
And I took the back seats out, and there's like a little fan back there.
Huh.
I
The
never
rear-
seen it like that
rear
before.
window
Where you could reach your hand in to get to the trunk,
Yeah.
the back of the back seat.
Yeah.
There's like almost like a little motor blower motor back there. I don't.
Rear window defroster, probably.
Is that what that is?
Yeah, if the ducting's missing, then it will look like it's from what's this thing doing here? But there's also ducting that should feed up underneath the package tray and then feed up to the window to blow the dust off. That was a fairly rare option, but it wasn't standard. But yeah, it's kind of an odd thing to find a propeller back there. But that's what.
Yeah, you know what it looks like? It looks like the blower motor, regular blower motor, just attached to the back of the seat.
Well, you know what that means? It's a prototype factory experimental. It's the go button. You hit that thing, and the propeller creates thrust.
I'm going to use that.
Harry, I'll look into that for you, because on my 65, the rear defroster, it mounts right up under the package shelf, directly under. So they might have changed that. But I have a source book. I can look it up for you.
Yeah, because I saw that, and because I was removing the seats and everything. Of course, I found tons of rat crap back there, but that, you got to take that with the car.
Good,
but it's pretty good shape, and like I said, like I'm gonna actually do videos of actually getting it running, because it's got the 350 Pontiac 2-barrel, and the car hasn't ran since 2012.
Okay.
I did move the engine, and I did hook a battery up, and it but the carburetor is not hooked up. And it's starting to pump a little bit of gas, so I shut it, of course. So I'm going to get that thing running, hopefully. And all the stuff that I'll do, like I'm going to go coilovers. I'll do all that stuff until I'm ready to put the LS. See, I'm a big LS guy. I love LS engine.
I have a Pontiac motor here if you need it.
Steve, Terry is a YouTube phenom. So he's the YouTube guy on the LS. So cover man 66 if you ever come across him.
Yeah. All right. And the LS engines, I have to say, those things, I love them. I was at Hot Rod Magazine from 97 through 2005, and I was there when the LT1 gave way to the LS1. And I think the 98 Corvette came along, 97 Corvette, with this LS engine. And we did a story, because that was part of the new wave of Detroit engines, the 4.6, 2, and 4-valve Ford. And then the Hemi came along several years later. Chrysler was still slogging with the 360 at that time. But the LS engine, we heard these rumors that they actually made 320 horsepower at the tires, not at the flywheel, or 305. We did a story called Who's Jazzin' Who? The Dyno Don't Lie in Hot Rod, probably 2006 or something like that, 7. And we did find that on a chassis dyno, most LS cars make the rated power at the tire, not at the flywheel. That's when we knew the performance age was back, and GM walked away. Those LS motors, the Gen 3s, Gen 4s, Gen 5s, going from strength to strength. 700 horsepower coming out of these things now with the blower, and the Z06, the LS7 engine. I mean, just fantastic stuff. 7 liters with 7,000 RPMs, titanium connecting rods, and these are just regular engines you can buy and run every day in crate form too, in many cases.
I got a 71 Chevelle that has a what is it, LY6. I didn't do anything to this thing except slap a cam in that thing with a LSA blower. It's 650 at the rear wheels.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this is finally when, hot rodders and, hot rodding and efficiency go hand in hand. So the cylinder heads flow amazing amounts of air, because that's just efficiency, whether it's, getting fuel economy or minimal friction. And of course, the piston rings, little light pistons and those things, and they run forever. Thank goodness for fuel injection. No more chokes, no more, rich running, and of course, synthetic oil, all these things. A lot of guys are taking LS motors out of pickup trucks, 6.0s and 5.3s, and not even doing anything, putting a blower on it and running it, because the rods are fine.
Putting turbos in that thing and just killing it. It's really good. And you mentioned the LT engine. That engine never really got it to do. It's the second cometh of the LT.
Right. Yeah.
I have one.
Yeah. The only weird thing was the OptiSpark, the deal where the ignition and the water pump are close to each other, and they went out.
GM did work on that. The early ones had the weep hole on the water pump, and the water pump has an odd affair, because it's not belt driven; it's driven off the camshaft.
Right.
It's an internal gear, and the weep hole was right over the OptiSpark, which was like bad planning. So what they did is I think it only took them about a year or so, and they redesigned the pump so that the outlet is away from the OptiSpark now. So that was,
Yeah, because I used to run tune ports. I was big into tune ports.
Yeah.
And the lateral move would be a LT, but the thing was, I was looking at LTs. It's like, this is too much like a tune port. It's just it's just, So I was just like, I saw the LS, and my friend just happened to call me down who's a GM dealership. He worked at a GM dealership, and he let me take an SS Camaro out. It's 98, and that was it. It was like, this is a wrap.
And the aluminum block and the aluminum heads. There's no hunting around for the rare one with the aluminum heads. All LSs have aluminum heads, except a handful of iron head truck engines. So yeah, I mean the exotic stuff. I mean racing improves the breed. Oh yeah, here we are with and the Hemi. I'm a Mopar guy at the core. I love all of them, but in my core is Chrysler stuff. I love them. And the second or third coming of the Hemi engine really has been a revelation to me. Back in 1982, when I would have been 22 years old. Something like 18, whatever it is. And but I remember, the front wheel drive LHS, the Charger 2.2 and stuff like that. And meanwhile,
the lasers and all that.
Laser, yeah.
Chrysler was all front wheel drive, and it was part of their bailout. They had to be fuel efficient, and it was part of the government deal. And they finally got their mojo back, if you will, but a decade after GM and Ford did, really. And the 5-liter Mustang, the IROC, and turbo Buicks, fantastic stuff in the 80s. And I remember though back in the 80s, waiting each year for Chrysler to come out with something, please, something. We got intercooled turbos and stuff, but it was all wrong wheel drive. I'm sorry to say that, but
I tell you what, that Charger, like the 84 Charger, that was a beautiful car.
Yeah.
It was a runner too.
Yeah, they had their merits for sure. Yeah, but it was nothing like, a good old American rear-wheel drive 5.0.
If they had an all-wheel drive, man, that would have been something. That would be the car people would get now.
Yeah. But now we get shaker challenges, we get Hellcats, we get Demons that run 9s. I mean, I would have bet anything we would not have the Hemi come back. And it really is a Hemi. If you ever take one apart, you'll find that it's got a whole lot of Hemi in it. I mean, people say, the name. No, it's a Hemi engine, double rockers.
You think now, because like everyone kind of likes and I like it too, as far as, they say that the 60s and the early 70s, well, the real early 70s, 60s were the heyday of the muscle car. I disagree. I think the heyday of muscle car is right now.
Yeah. The good old days are right now. I mean, we have to. The earlier cars are bricks in the chimney. Without them, we wouldn't be here.
Right.
But at the same time, the older cars are kind of quaint now with their 14-second quarter miles and 14-second Hemi Cuda. Now we get 12s, 11s, 10s, 9s. So yeah, it's good stuff. They all go forward hand in hand.
Yeah, and then you take the new engine and you put it in the old car.
Yeah, Hellcat swaps. The one thing I'm a little puzzled with is the Ford Bronco thing. I get that, the new one that's coming out, not the Bronco Sport. That's cool, but the Broncos.
I seen one yesterday.
Yeah, but vintage Broncos are cool. But putting a Coyote with 440 horsepower in something with this, the Statue of Liberty has a lower center of gravity than the Bronco. You know what I mean? With 440, first time somebody cuts the wheel, punches the gas, and goes on a lid. I don't know. I don't want to predict that kind of a thing. But putting a Coyote in a Bronco is brave, and they're building them like mad. But anyway,
well, Ford wants that piece of the pie that Chrysler has now, and that GM has with the LS platform. I can't blame them. I do think that's a little scary. That's a little maybe. I mean, we just had a car got picked up today at the shop. It was a McLaren F650.
Right.
And this thing, it came in overnight a couple of weeks ago on a rainy night. The guy punched a phone pole with this thing, and it got totaled, so it's going away. But I was talking with a fellow on the street, and he was saying, asking me all sorts of questions, and how could this happen? I'm like, well, the guy had, he wrote a check his butt couldn't cash. I said he probably had traction control off because he obviously punched a pole because there was this big, big mess of you in the front. And
it's hard for them to get away from you.
Yeah, so we were talking about, horsepower and even with good tires on it, you can still get out of shape with these things. And
that's why they give you that whole warning, like drive your car for 5,000. It's not for the car. It's not for the car. When you first buy a car, you got to break it in for like 5,000. It's not for the car. It's for the person.
Yeah, so you get used to it. Yeah.
You get used to that car. That's exactly what it is. It's not for it's not for the car.
Yeah. Crazy.
Yeah, it's funny because my first, I had a 2011. You saw it, Ray. The 2011, the first one, the Camaro, the SS.
Yes.
Now I bought that car in 2013. I was like, I always heard about this, like how come this car doesn't feel, and I talked to one of my buddies. He was like, Terry, because I took the traction control off. And you would think it would be incinerating, but there's a key to that car. You have to hold it down for like 7 seconds. Because if you hold it down, it'll say traction control off. It'll be TC off. But if you hold it down for 7 seconds, the traction control button for 7 seconds, everything goes off. And my friend was like, Terry, I know you're bad. I know you know what you're doing. Go to a parking lot with this car because it's a different animal. And I was like, that's different. So I get off. I was working in Jersey City, so I get off the train in Jersey and to the parking lot. And I was just like, what could it be, right? So I took it off, and the car, I was drifting out the parking lot, and I was like, I got to go to a different parking lot, because there was cones in there. I was like, I got to get used to this car because, like he said, it was a totally different car. And I was like, how much different could it be? But then I got a ZL1, so.
Yeah.
Whole another beast.
Yeah. There he is.
Chassis
John.
What's up, guys?
56 Bel Air extraordinaire. Talk to me, Chassis.
Oh, that was so funny, man. I was laughing and dying. That was the best. I was waiting for you to describe the three of them as like the three little bears,
Yeah.
It was just like the 56 is just so beautiful. It's so it's
curvy.
Yeah, they all got their, although I will say I do like the 57 with the little air vent up and above the headlight. That is awfully cool.
Yeah. And the 56, the fuel filler hidden in the driver's side taillight. That's
so there you go. So Steve agrees with me. The 56 is the better looking one.
That's like the way they used to do that with the Oldsmobiles too.
No, we ain't talking about Oldsmobiles.
No, they did.
That had a taillight with the fuel filler in it?
Yeah.
Was it a Buick or an Oldsmobile?
No, the Oldsmobile had it in the late 50s. My friend had 58, I think, that had it. But I've gone on record to say I'm a dyed-in-the-wool 55 guy. I own one. But I like the side trim better on a 56. I think they did it better.
That's what I'm saying. I'm helping raise turning now. Everyone.
It's in between. The 55 is like let's see, Sylvester Stallone in the first Rocky movie, walking around with the leather jacket, tough guy. The 57 is kind of like I don't know,
jeweled up,
a little bit too exotic, kind of like
Don Johnson.
a little Don Johnson, maybe.
Or,
RuPaul, more like RuPaul. And then the 56 is still the ugly stepchild, but what do you got there?
It's not an ugly car. It's not the ugly.
No, they're cool. They're really cool.
The 56 is when he beat Mr. T up. That's
okay.
Yeah, because his eyes didn't match. Now he had round lights and
that's Rocky 3, the best Rocky ever. That's the 56. The 55 is the first Rocky. Right? 57, which is
Terry.
Yeah, I like that.
Right.
In the meantime, Ray, why you busted balls on using restoration parts? I'm building a whole car here, man.
Well, I know, but no, but there's a difference, John. There is really, and I'll clarify my statement. On a car like mine that's pretty much an original car, your car is a whole different animal. It's another breed, if you will, if I could paraphrase your own.
I know. Try finding a 70 Firebird that you can work with.
No, well, with something like what you're doing, I have no problem with that whatsoever. I'm just thinking, and again, it was my personal choice. I could have gone. I mean, believe me, I gave Ames a lot of money for restoration parts. Just other stuff I chose to repurpose.
I'll tell you straight up, this stuff coming out of the box gave me some confidence that I bought good stuff, from Goodmark, and it's going to work real well. When my body guy went to start putting things together, it was like, who cheaped out here? Who didn't make this flange just the way it's got to be? A lot of work.
I'll tell you something. I did put a Goodmark. I had to put one fender on my car, and I bought a Goodmark fender, and I was very impressed with the quality.
I'm impressed with the quality, but when you go to put the stuff together,
matching up.
The quarters were perfect. Not a problem whatsoever putting the quarters on. To make a long story short, Steve, what I did is I'm recreating a Pro Street Firebird that I had built out of a real 1970. Back around 78, 79, I built this car as a Pro Street car. And sold it. Well, it got into an accident. I do things so weird. It got hit in the rear end by a drunk. At that time in the body shop, I had my body guy convert the car to a 1981.
Okay. With a rubber plastic nose?
No, with a fiberglass. Here, I could give you a quick here. That's the car.
Okay.
All right.
Was that in some magazine? Was that in Hot Street Cars?
Hot cars and Popular Hot Rodding.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. And Carcraft. do you know Norman Mayerson, who was in Carcraft for a while?
I've never met him, but I certainly know who he is. Oh yeah.
He wrote an 8-page article on this car called The University of Street Machining.
Wow.
Yeah, before it was a Pro Street car. So it got whacked in the rear quarter. So the quarter was shot, the body panel was shot, things were messed up. So I told my body guy, I'm like, well, if you have to replace stuff, can we make it an 81? He goes, well, what are you going to do with the nose? I said, I got a guy that'll buy it. So I bought, a fiberglass Pro Stock nose, full nose with a lift-off hood. And it turned into this car.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So
So
everybody thought I built it. Yeah, Echo.
Okay.
Here's English Town.
Yeah, I like that twist. I like that.
Yeah.
Some people say
So,
that's a chassis. I don't agree. It's a damn good looking launch. That's bad.
Yeah. This was leaning a little bit. This here I still had ladder bars in the car.
Yeah.
So it had a tendency to torque over quite a bit.
Speaking of which, right? This is the model I built, right? I built this thing with the suspension doing exactly that. If you look at this side, it's squatting down. This side, it's launching.
Right.
Right there.
That's crazy.
What
is that?
So in an effort to recreate that first car, I found for a ridiculous price in Atlanta a 1981 Firebird.
Okay.
And we chopped it up and we're converting it into a 1970.
Yeah.
So I'm like going
Going
both
up,
ways.
opposite.
Going in opposite directions here, but it's all new sheet metal.
Yeah,
I got everything from. I went to NPD.
Yeah, that's great. That's a great thing. We can do this, and especially a project like that where you're kind of freestyling it. It's great to have that metal rather than trying to find new old stock quarters and paying $3,000 piece for them. Or One question for you: was the passenger side floor radically different on that 81 versus the 70? Like, was there a big hump for a catalytic converter? Do you remember?
Yes,
Okay.
there is.
Okay. Yeah.
A lot of the floor in this car, the previous owner did a back half on it. There is still some of the stock floor, basically, really to almost to where the back of the seat mounts are, the back seat mounts. Okay. And from there he modified it with some framing and some sheet metal and stuff. But there is a definite difference on the passenger side floor.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I'm going to actually there's a little bit of rot in the passenger side floor where it starts to meet the kick-up. So I need some room for some exhaust and things like that. So I'm going to wind up cutting out both of the floor panels and actually bringing them up a little bit. So they're almost even with where the front seat mounts would be, which it's not going to make a difference in terms of driver and passenger comfort, but it's going to afford me about another 1.5 inches of clearance because the car is going to sit low. So that way I'll be able to tuck the exhaust system up, the headers and everything. It'll have custom headers built on it.
You're going to do it with your cross member. That's going to pretty much be the same, right?
Cross members will be not the stock cross member. I'll be actually doing what I got to, building a cross member for it with pretty large, humps. So doing that by raising the floor up and moving some stuff around under there, it's going to give me room to run, like a 3.5-inch set of pipes out the back. Yeah. Well, you got to make that big block Chevy breathe, brother.
Yeah.
There you go.
Well, you guys know where I'm at with my 67 Chevelle. I'm at the point where, okay, I boxed it, the frame, braced it. Now I'm at the point I got to make a decision if I want to do mini tubs on that thing. But here's the thing.
Go for it.
But see, here's the thing. With the 67 right above where the hump is, like over the back axle,
Yeah.
it gets really thin back there. So the proper way would be to bring it in and then kind of go and then kind of bring it back out or whatever.
Yes.
But they don't make a kit where, I mean, I don't know if I want to go that far. So my question to you guys, what is the biggest wheel as far as, let's say, inch rim I could put in the back of that 67? I know on a 71, like, because my 71, I think I get away with a 12-inch. I think it'd be tight. It'd be really, really tight. But I think I might be able to do it at least 11 and a half. What do you think?
You could definitely fit a 10 in there, but I don't know.
I can tell you right now on my car, my 65, which has got to be very close to the 7. Now, I haven't had these tires dismounted yet, but I will soon. This year I have to change them. I got to say, I either have a 10 or a 10.5-inch rim on there in the wheel well. And I can put my fingers between the end of the tire and the drip rail and the rail molding. So,
because if I just what's it called, notch in the frame, the best I can get out of it, even if you cut like right where the welds are, the best you can probably get out of it is an inch. Because if you get if you take 2 inches out of there, it's going to be like real thin. And I don't want to go that route. But if I can get 11
what you can do is not narrow the actual rail. You can cut the rail in front and in back and take that stock rail. Now move that rail in and fill in the holes.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, you could take let's say the rail's 2 inches thick, just for numbers, okay? You cut it in the front and you cut it in the back, where the tub is, and you take what was the part of the frame closest to the tire, and you move that to the inside of the frame.
right.
And then you triangulate it with some tubing, some rectangular tubing, and you come from the piece you moved diagonally to the original frame. Same thing, front and back, and then you fill in. So you literally just taking the rail from here and moving it there.
Yeah, but you're not just moving the rails; you're also moving where the coilovers are hooked into. You got to redo all that.
Well, if you're going to go with aftermarket coilovers, really, you're literally moving them in an inch and a half.
Have you thought of an aftermarket chassis? Schwartz Roadster Shop.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of.
Yeah.
That's like the garage way of doing it is to cut it and move it. We call it Z-ing the frame.
Right.
And then you can actually take your stock wheel tub, cut it, move the tub in, and then just fill in that strip.
See, I was thinking about that, but then I was like, all this because like I'm thinking, like I just want like an extra inch on that. If I can get like 11-inch wheel back there on a stock location, I'm happy. I don't need to have some big steamroller back there because what I'm doing is I'm sending the we talked about this, John, last week. Mosier, they want me to send them my axle, my axle diff, and they're going to shorten it because to find a 66, 67, differential, which is, I think it's like a little under 3/4 of an inch shorter, than a 70. 70 to 72, you can find them all day long, but 66, 67 is kind of like a needle in a haystack. So he says, send me your axle. They'll cut them down to wherever I want them to. And at that point, I can get Torino bearings or whatever, housings and all that, which I'm thinking about getting a bolt in. And that would fix that problem. But if I want to go a little bit more narrower, I got to think about this frame. But it's to the point where I think it'd be too much trouble because, like Steve says, you can get a new frame, but then, I'm not racing this car. I mean, it's going to be, every now and then autocrossing and every now and then a strip. But for the most part, you're going to see me up in Bear Mountain.
Well, you could do the frame modifications and then go for what they call a custom wheel where they would make
I'm definitely
offset. Yeah, you get the wheels offset.
Yeah.
What you need to find is I need to find a company. Steve may know. There's a company that makes a a tool. So, like, if you have a tire that you're trying to mount on a specific vehicle, this has a plate that bolts to your axle, and then it has like arms like a spider. That will grab the beads of the tire, and you set it for the rim width that you're looking for, and then by turning another knob, it moves the tire in and out, and then you read off the scale. It's 18 by 9 with a 6 3/8 backspace. You know what I'm saying? And I've seen this on the internet, but I don't know where I can find it again. And it's what these guys use to make custom wheels to fit anything, you know. But I don't know who makes it, and I should have saved it in my computer, and I didn't, like an idiot.
I got just for general purposes, you're the guy we would ask who sells that, because you're the chassis guy.
I know.
So when you
I saw it one time when I was working on Rocco's Camaro.
Oh wow!
And I didn't save it because we had already bought wheels and tires for the car. You know? And I'm like, oh God.
Yeah.
Hey, Steve, real quick. I'm a huge fan. Love watching you. Love listening to you and everything. And I didn't get a chance, but I was able to pull out a model kit, still sealed. 1981.
Monogram. Boston.
Wow.
Yes.
So. And of course, I was trying to find my most favorite kit, and it's in honor of Terry, but it was the 55 Chevy Gasser.
Oh, Batman.
Yeah, the yellow Batman.
The yellow one,
I built like 9 of those things, and I still have one sealed. And of course, you can't find that. I've looked. It's one of my Google searches on eBay, so when I can find one, I want to buy another one. But I love your models. Have you decided, or have you thought about going into the, Hot Wheel size? Have you tried to do any modifications?
I do pretty much 1/25 scale. This is something I'm working on right now. This is a Nova, and I use styrene tubing. I build it, then I paint it. But this is a replica of my old Wilshire Shaker Nova, and you can kind of see that the front sub is there we go, is tubular stuff, and like the rear suspension I made like leaf springs and stuff. But again, 1/25 scale. Anything smaller, I can't really get the detail I want. But here's like the rear suspension, the 9-inch rear axle with the leaf springs are sort of torqued up and everything like that. And so then you paint the stuff with brushes and spray afterwards.
I have over at my mom and dad's. I have my table that I used to build the models. Same thing, and I just boxes and boxes of pieces and parts and putting on. And until I guess that started working on cars, when you were able to start with that and then went into cars, and now I'm finding myself going back to that. I guess to relax the mind or to dig on or whatever. But I love seeing yourself. I follow you on Instagram, and I know that you're going to have to send me where I can find my old models. They want millions of dollars now for that stuff.
You're right. And I got one of the good ones that I collected.
Yeah, Street Freak. Yeah.
Right. And I haven't even built it yet. It's still in the plastic. The Street Freak Mustang. I want to build it so bad, but I'm afraid to break the seal.
The good news really is that like that model right there has been re-released, I think, as Russ Davis or something. I mean, Auto World / Tom Lowe round 2. They're doing great things. He owns most of the AMT tools now, and they're going with the original box art, new decals and stuff. So go ahead and open that kit up. It's okay. That's probably from 1990.
We got little drawers and stuff like this. I went to AMD for bumpers for my Pontiac, but I have them right here. I got spare 65 GTO bumpers right here, but they just wouldn't fit.
Put in water for a couple.
You need to scan them and 3D print them.
Right, 3D print them is right. So it's funny.
I built this in 1978. It's a tribute to the St. Martin car, but it stayed in California for a while. It kind of melted, but got the little Hemi, but this is the Johan 64 Plymouth. But I built this thing kind of a tribute to the Sox and Martin. When I was 1978, I was 14 years old when I built this thing. Somehow I managed to keep all my old models. And
I've got the Chrysler turbine.
Yeah.
That's
yeah,
man.
yeah.
And I won't. Same thing with like Ray says. That's still in the box, and I open it, I look at it, and I'm like, God, I want to build this, but I can't. And I don't know why. It's silly, I guess. But
anything Johan is intensely rare, and the sad thing with that is that Johan stuff probably will never be reproduced because the tooling was scrapped by disgruntled employees. John Hanley, Johan. The word is, in his later years, employees maybe weren't paid so regularly. It's a popular thing. You'll see it all over the place. So folks would actually take tooling and scrap it in lieu of pay. So like the Roadrunner, the Superbird, the 442, all those things, the tooling was scrapped. But here's the good news. About 12 years ago, Revell Monogram, Rommel's rod, remember that funky half track thing? Well, the tooling for that was destroyed in the 70s. For who knows why, it's gone. Well, they digitized a kit and they brought it back. So if that can be, and that kit sold out, Rommel's rod, you can buy it today for about $40. It used to be $240 until they re-released it. And it's virtually the same kit. A little bit of difference. If you check them out side by side, the trees, the way the parts are lined up and stuff are a little bit different. And the Mercedes logo is no longer on the valve cover of the engine. But beyond that, if they can digitize a kit like that, well, Johan models can come back, but just it's going to take.
Those were the best ones, man. I saved up I saved up all my allowance money and paper route money, and that I loved. We had a hobby shop down here, and you go in there, and getting a Johan was the highlight of the whole thing. And I did a lot of military ones too. I loved the military models, recreating war scenes or itself, or blown up buildings and so forth. But no, but it's awesome work, Steve. And like I said, I just wanted to let you know, super fan and love what you do and keep up the good work.
Yeah, thank you.
I'll tell you this, Steve. I've never heard Brian say that before, so it must be true.
No, come on. No,
Steve, are you going to be a SEMA this year?
Huh?
Are you going to be a SEMA this year, Steve?
Well, I think so. I guess it's on. And yeah, things are kind of, well, right now, Motor Trend and I, we have a great relationship. I love them. But if they don't renew Junkyard Gold, then there won't be a need for me to go to SEMA with Motor Trend. If they do renew Junkyard Gold and new season happens, well, then yes, I'll probably be there doing promotions for the show. But so I may be at SEMA if it's under Motor Trend's wing. If not, I'll probably be in the Junkyard somewhere shooting more episodes with on another label, as they say.
We're gonna come look for you, see and shake your hand, bud.
I know.
Yeah, for sure.
Me and my wife find you every year.
Okay.
Every year we manage to find you somewhere and just grab you for 2 seconds and then let you go, because I know that your schedule is insane when you guys are there. All of the guys, you're working. So it's I got to be at this booth, I got to be at that booth, I got to go to this building. It's
right.
It's tenuous. I understand that 100%.
I just found you on Instagram. I just followed you, so if you see Coverman66, you know it's me.
Okay. Thank you. All right.
Yeah,
Cool.
yeah. Well, hey guys, you guys can hang out at the after party with Ray, but I have to jump ship.
Yeah, I gotta go myself.
Steve, hey, I really appreciate you coming on, man. We enjoyed you on here, and man, good luck on Junkyard Gold. Hopefully, come back strong.
Yeah, one way or the other. And I thank you, Louis, for the invitation. And I didn't know it was 9:00 p.m. It's where I'm in Massachusetts, but it's cool. It's a nice time. It's a mellow part of the day, and it's nice, folks.
Louis, while you're still on the show, let me tell people that they should definitely. You want to talk about the greatest hits from 2007. You want to get Steve's DVDs. This is the how to build an altered wheelbase car, and then from 2010. Match Bass Madness.
Yeah, that's right. You're reading my mind.
There we go. Well, it's all about, we're all in the promotion game, right? So we know how to do that.
And one thing too, it's not to sell this. This is, I think they're still, they do these. This is the DVDs. They grew out of this book. While I was shooting the videos, I also shot pictures. So this is the book, and I think they're still available online. It's out of print. They did, I think, like, I don't know, 3,500 copies. And it's funny because Cartech Books, they thought, altered wheelbase book, I don't know. So it was kind of a leap of faith for them to do it. And they did sell out. It took a few years, but those people who know and love the altered wheelbase funny car thing, the book is available online.
Now, what website? Do you have a website that they can go to?
Well, I don't have a website, but I can. I'll plug my podcast, the Steve Maggs Muscle Car Show. And what that basically is, every Monday and Tuesday, ooh, nice, Hot Wheels. Yeah, a little funny car. Right on. I like it. But my 1,000 Muscle Car Facts book, what I do is the show is the Steve Maggs Muscle Car Show podcast. And for half an hour each Monday and Wednesday, I read facts, starting with number 1. And I think we're at number 592 or something like that right now. And between facts, I give author commentary. So the Steve Maggs Muscle Car Show podcast is something out there. It's free and the usual Spotify, etc. Check that out if you want, So
Very cool.
Check it out.
Awesome.
Well, everyone, I must be heading off. Lewis, Steve, it was nice meeting you.
Thank you.
Hey, everyone in the chat room. Brian, Chassis John,
Hey.
respect the 56 Bel Air.
Terry.
Sweet dreams on the Coyote motor, okay?
Yeah.
Yeah. No respect. I know.
This conversation is over.
Terry.
I still love you, Terry. Don't worry.
And
Thank you, everyone.
All right,
Fold up
Terry.
that laptop. See you later.
So,
Steve, I got to tell you, Steve, in Junkyard Gold, I love the special effects of how they show the car you're talking about.
Oh, right.
And you're describing what you will do to that car.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, whoever is doing that work, I'm going to assume they're also a car guy because they get it right.
Yeah. It's the funny thing is, I live in Massachusetts, and that show is produced in California.
Right.
And what we do is we meet in the middle. I fly. We find the yard we're going to feature. We spend about 10 days there. We shoot 2 episodes. I fly in 3 days early. I'm the only one there. And what I do is I find the vehicles we're going to showcase, and also I find cars that fit a theme. And that theme isn't known until we get there. If I find a bunch of cop cars, well, cops and muscle cars, cops and robbers, if you will. And then so I create the theme, get the cars, do my research, and then the crew comes in. And then we have 3 cameramen, a drone, a sound guy. This is about 9 people who fly in. And then we shoot the 2 episodes. But I go in there a few days early to do the legwork, as it were. And then they go back to LA. I come back to Massachusetts, and they bolt the show together, and they do that editing. And the special effects you mentioned are a nice part of the show where they Yeah, I have no gripe with Motor Trend in any way, shape, or form, but a lot of changes have happened.
I every time I see something, like when there was a particular car when you were at the Mopar junkyard that you wanted to make into an altered.
Yes.
And I'm like, the guy that's in post production, he's pulling stuff probably out of archives and internet, but they're making it work.
Yeah, the beautiful thing is that the folks who do that stuff, they're generally quite a bit younger, but they take the bait and they get it. And when they do that, they got Dave Freiberger back there, of course, to help guide. And but they have access to the Motor Trend archives, and they can actually get shots of John DeLorean with an overhead cam Pontiac 6-banger that I referenced on the show and plug that in. So that's wonderful. And that stuff I have no control over. I could fly there if I wanted to and hold their hands, but they do a great job as it is. So I hope we get to. Fingers
crossed they keep it going, man. That thing needs more seasons. Absolutely.
It gets good viewership. There should be. We'll see.
Well, right now, collectively, Motor Trend has a giant breadbasket full of awesome. My DVR is like recording 24 hours a day. Stuff that I hadn't seen, I set it so that it records reruns and first runs and stuff, and then I go through, and I'm just finding all kinds of great stuff.
Yeah.
It's just amazing.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff there. An odd thing, what kind of happened early on, Motor Trend On Demand was a computer thing. It wasn't really a TV at all. Right. And then the Discovery Channel blended in, and now it's TV and the internet with more emphasis on TV than the internet. And a lot of things like the Roadkill extras, that kind of thing, those are gone. So it's changing. It's changing. It's no longer like the little grassroots thing. It's getting shinier, which is okay. Life. So yeah,
I'm getting a kick out of some of the really early Hot Rod Garage episodes
okay,
with those guys, where they would have a band literally playing on set, and I'm like, oh my god, this is the beginning of Hot Rod Garage. And you see where a lot of these roadkill cars actually came from. It's just so funny to see these guys so much younger, and doing what they do at Hot Rod Garage, and then how it changed over to other guys. And I also watch oh boy, I'm losing my mind here. What's the one where they go into the dyno cell? Engine Masters, yeah.
Yeah, that's a great one.
I'm learning a whole bunch of stuff watching Engine Masters.
Brule and then Dulcich.
Yeah, Brule's really good, and Dulcich, he's a really smart dude.
Yes, he is. Yeah,
he really knows what's going on. He'll fool you. The guy, he's unbelievable.
Yeah. Well, I'm in Massachusetts now, but I lived in California for 17 years, and I had a place in El Monte we used to call the Hillbilly Hell Shack, and basically 2 houses on a big piece of dirt, and we used to have hot rods and cars and stuff. And Dulcich would come out there, and every once in a while we just sort of hang around, drink some beers and stuff, and sometimes go street racing in the City of Industry in the wee hours of the night. And it was a wonderful time. It was really a good time. And Dulcich, I mean, back then he was writing tech for Mopar Muscle magazine, and just a sharp dude. Yeah, they're all good people.
Yeah. They're all great.
If I can bring some of your maybe not so secret stories, Steve. That was a place you could find slant sixes and Hemi engines in the kitchen.
That's right. And she
I learned about what dead cat storage means.
That's right.
I mean, there's so much stuff that we learn from guys like you. It's great.
Yeah. Hey, Steve, I'm going to jump off, but listen. Once you're on the show, you're family, so you're welcome to come anytime that you have something to share, or if you just want to come hang out with us, you're always welcome.
I appreciate that, Lewis. Right on. Thank you.
Especially if you have cookies or cake.
Yeah. All right, guys, I appreciate everybody, and I'll see you next week. And thanks for being playing in traffic with us. Okay, guys. See you later.
See you.
Take care, Lewis.
All righty.
He's great.
Yeah.
Phenomenal.
So I covered mostly everything, which was pretty good.
It's a good show tonight. Excellent show tonight.
Are we still on, or how does it work?
Yeah, we're still live.
Oh, we're still on.
I actually have the control now, so until I say end stream, we're live.
Okay.
So we're still going. We now it's like the 10th, 9th, 10th, 11th round of that boxing match, and we slug it. We see who can stay awake the longest. Usually me that falls asleep first. I'm like,
we used to be on a different platform, and when Lewis would log off, we had about an hour or so before it would automatically cut us off, and we used to talk about because I'm a drummer, Ray's a drummer. We used to get into music. Terry's a drummer.
It started with music, yeah.
Yeah, we used to get into music and politics and all kinds of crazy.
Yeah, this is sort of like a synchronicity moment. Okay, I'm going to hold up some CD covers. You tell me what they mean to you, if anything. Anything? Jim Carroll Band?
Jim Carroll Band. Yeah. He had a hit back in the 80s.
Yeah, early 80s.
Early 80s. Yeah, it was like 81, I think. What the hell's the name of that?
Of course, we have the U2. Good stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
These are bands I like a lot. Of course, Cream. Yes.
Oh, Cream.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. That's good.
First album I ever bought was Disraeli Gears by Cream.
Yes. Me too.
I was 14,
Yeah.
and it was an oldie at that point in time, which is kind of weird to think. But disco was a big deal when I was 14, 15, and I know disco dance. But I love, Cream was a great.
I don't think any of us. Well, John probably did, but
yeah. I was a DJ for a while.
Yeah, but we don't now.
And some of the hottest girls I ever dated. Hanging out in the disco.
I'll tell you something. Slip Disc used to be the name of a record store here on Long Island. It was a very big record store. Well, now that's what happens if we try to disco dance.
Right. I'll tell you what. It's kind of funny though, because I'll always be a rock and roller. But today was one of those days I had to do a lot of driving for work, and I gravitated to Studio 54 on my Sirius XM.
Cool.
And it's, you hear some stuff and it's like, oh my God, I remember spinning that, when I was a DJ. So there was some really good stuff. And then there was some stuff that I was like, oh my God, this is horrible. how did people even buy this record?
Right.
So it's a little of everything.
It's funny. I was thinking about that. Today I think muscle cars. I was kind of thinking about that. I was born in '64, so I saw muscle cars the first time around as a kid. Didn't know what I was looking at. I remember being about 6 or 7 in Beverly, Massachusetts, visiting my grandmother, and over the bridge on Rantoul Street, I think, came a Super Bee with a 426 Hemi emblem on the hood and the air grabber open. It was kind of rusty, but I said, Hemi. That's the same thing on the side of my Gene Snow funny car model kit box. What's a Hemi? A Hemi. I didn't know what a Hemi was. There was a Hemi Super Bee in Beverly, Mass. Now, it probably had a 318 by that point in time, or who knows what, the engine, who knows what, but there was a Hemi Super Bee. But
I got a Hemi story. I guess it was 70 or 71. My dad bought a riding lawnmower, and he had some sort of problems with it. So he called his friend because he had bought it from a local nursery, which also sold lawn equipment. And he called his buddy, said, I'm having problems. It starts, but it won't continue to run. I don't know what's going on. So his friend says, okay, I'll send a mechanic over there to check it out, see what's happening. So I was hanging out on the driveway with my Schwinn Stingray and my buddies, and down the street, and pulls up in front of my house a white Plymouth Superbird, black vinyl top, black interior, Hemi car, 4-speed.
Nice.
My jaw dropped. I was like, oh my God, what is this? I had never seen anything like that in my life. I was completely, insanely hooked at the time.
Yeah.
And I was destined to be a Mopar guy. I liked Dusters. I liked Chargers. I had a friend up the block had a 70 440 Charger.
Nice. RT, right?
Yeah. And that's the route that I was going. And then a guy that was a year older than me, graduated high school a year before me. We had some common friends, and I wound up at his house one day, and he had a original owner, 71 Z28, 350 LT1, 4-speed, Hugger orange, that burnt orange with the black stripes and a black interior.
Big spoiler or the little spoiler? Which one did he have?
The little spoiler.
The transition, right?
Yeah, the little spoiler, and he took me for a ride. Yeah, he took me for a ride in that car, and naturally, with the LT1 and the 4-speed, it accelerated. Yeah. But he turned the wheel and it got around a turn.
Right.
Now I had driven around in other, Mopars, Dusters and Darts, and you make a turn and the wheels are turned and the car keeps going straight. Yeah. Let's face it, back then Chryslers didn't get around turns and they didn't stop real well.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, the Z28 completely flipped me into being a GM guy. And I'm like, well, this thing gets around turns, stops, and goes. And then I wound up getting into Firebirds because a Firebird, to me, was a more elegant Camaro. Even though it just had other things that were kind of
the shaker
above standard. Yeah, the shaker scoop, the
Pontiac
interiors
was better appointed than the Chevy.
Yeah, it had a little bit better appointments to it. You know what I'm saying? The Pontiac motors, I wasn't a huge fan. I wound up blowing up the 400 a couple of times.
Yeah.
And I just took it out and I put a 350 in it.
Yeah.
I put a Chevy motor in, and later on I wound up becoming a nitrous big block guy, and I've never left that camp.
Yeah. When I was at Hot Rod Magazine, one of my cohorts was Terry McGeehan, who is now editor of Hemmings Muscle Machines. And he's a big Pontiac guy. And we used to have these round and round, not fist fights, but he's always talking about how cool a 455 was. I'm thinking, dude, you got a 3 1/4 inch main bearing diameter in that thing. $7,000, have fun. You can take a 440 to 6,500 RPM. Now, the 440 block's a big, heavy piece of metal with that deep skirt. But I always thought that Pontiac engines were really good station wagon motors. I mean, really good station wagon motors. But, the tri-powers, the only stuff, General Motors, they did a lot for a company that was out of racing. After 63, of course, the addict to performance. They had Hemi engines coming along. They would have had Hemis. I mean, that's for sure. There were Olds and Pontiac Hemi engines that were, and Chevrolet, there were small block Hemi, 3-valve Chevys and stuff, experimental things. Had those things been unleashed, it would have made Mopar Hemis look pretty tame, I think. But GM had one hand behind their back. But with that said, the Pontiacs, with the exception of the early Super Duty 421 stuff, they had iron intake manifolds, even the tri-power cars. I mean, they were very, they sold the sizzle like mad. The GTO was a sizzle seller. But it wasn't a Max Wedge. An aluminum nose Max Wedge car was a true high performance car in '64. Whereas a GTO was kind of a, it was an inflated thing. I love them. A '65 GTO is a thing of beauty to me. A 4-speed car with aluminum drums. Kind of had the aluminum drums front. But the Pontiacs were about sizzle and some steak. But I always thought that was a weird thing.
It's funny you say that because here on the well we had Motion Performance with Joel Rosen, and we're really good friends with Marty Shore, and Marty's Joel. Had the steak and Marty put the sizzle on it, and
yes,
there was no better advertising guy in the game back then.
It's funny. I had a 2-hour conversation with Marty Shore about a month ago. I have this thing where, like, back in the early 1990s, 93, 94, 95, I was doing a lot of phone interviews with people, Sox and Martin, Dick Landy, Don Nicholson. And I thought, before these guys go, I hate to say it, because they're all gone now, these fellows,
Right.
And I didn't say to Marty, you're going to be gone soon. May he live forever. But with that, it's just I said to him, tell me about your days at Magnum Royal back in '59. Walk me through that. For 2 hours, we talked about that. And on my podcast, occasionally I do a thing called From the Vaults. And I'm going to have Marty's voice and him, hopefully, But Marty is a wealth of information. And he was there. And it was amazing to hear him talk about the Peterson guys at press days. They would always they'd steal the cars, be gone. And meanwhile, they'd be twiddling the New York magazines would get, hind teeth. And it was unfair because the New York books, I love them, Street and Strip Supercar, High Performance Cars, Super Talking Effects. The Marty Shore, the Magnum Royal titles were great stuff. As a kid, I read them as well as the Peterson. But Marty was the guy making them things happen, along Joe Oldham. And
what a magnanimous guy. It was back, I don't know, I forget what year it was, 2010 or 9, and the Motion book was coming out. And then I contacted Marty cold, from the radio show, and
down in Florida.
He was nice enough to talk to me, which is a lot of guys wouldn't do. And he says, "Listen, my Motion book is coming out, but it's ready." He goes, "But I tell you, I want you to talk to someone else first, and it's Joe Oldham, because Joe Oldham wrote, Confessions of a Muscle Car Test Driver." And I got a hold of that book, and I swear I couldn't read that book slow enough because I didn't want it to end.
Yeah, same here. Withdrawal when it gets to the last chapter.
Yeah, and so we had Joe on, and then we had Marty on. I was like, wow, does it get better than this at all? Because these guys had the keys to the kingdom back then.
Yeah.
Wow.
We want to get
every now and then at a Cars and Coffee, I'll actually run into Marty.
Yeah.
Marty's down in Sarasota. I know that's where he's based out of.
That's right. I go to a Cars and Coffee down there every now and then.
And he doesn't
run into us.
He has a site called Car Guy Chronicles. He hasn't been too active lately, but he also does his own Cars and Coffee down there with the guys. And
Getting back to Pontiac, I got scolded in the '90s. We repaired, basically rebuilt a Trans Am for Nunzi.
Toronto. Old Nunzi.
Nunzi was the best.
He
called me up and he was like, I need my car fixed. My driver put the thing into the guardrail. Can you get me in? I'm like, yeah. Bring it out. So we basically put almost the whole chassis in the car with a lot of body panels and made it nice. We updated it. He was great. But he would come out at night after he was done building engines. He'd call me up. He's like, I'm coming out. You want to be there? Yeah, I'll be here for you. And he would bring a loaf of Italian bread. This is when I had my chassis shop in Long Island. And he'd bring cheese, and he would bring wine that he actually made. He grew grapes in the backyard of the shop.
Yeah.
He had grapevines, and he would make wine.
On Utrecht Avenue.
Yeah. And he would bring a big chunk of hard cheese, and he'd pull this knife out of his pocket.
Sticky cheese.
And he'd shave that cheese, and we would eat it on the Italian bread. And then he would see pictures like the one I showed you with the Trans Am. And he's like, what do you have in that car? I said, 500 inches of Chevy with nitrous. No, what are you kidding me? Come on. I'll build you a motor.
I got to tell you, John, I reconnected with a dear friend who passed away, Frank Dominiani from High Speed in Valley Stream. And the
Yes.
same thing, I would go to the shop, and I walk up there one day and I see him in the back. He's right on Merrick Road in Valley Stream. He's in the back of a little round picnic table with an umbrella, and he waves to me. Come on, come back, sit down. And he's got a buck knife, and he's slicing provolone, and he's got a thing of the meats. And he says, "Hey," he goes, "Come on, we got," and it's hot as hell. It was hot. I swear we could have been in Genoa, Italy, if I didn't know we were in Valley Stream.
Yeah.
He goes, "Hey, you want something to drink? I'm gonna make it." I'm like, "Yeah." So I figured he was going to come out with a bottle of Chianti or some kind of red wine. So then he comes out with lemonade. He goes, we got to have lemonade. It's the summertime. What are you going to do?
That's it. Well, good.
All right.
I'm so glad that I'm a car guy. I did like Steve, like you. I started with models, screwing around with models, and then getting involved with some of the older guys in town, helping them out with their cars. And then finally, when I got my own stuff, and I worked in a speed shop. And that wound up turning into a side deal, doing chassis work for people, which turned into a complete business. And I wound up having a very large chassis shop on Long Island for a lot of years. And I was able to mingle with a lot of people. We did work for Ronnie Socks.
Yeah.
I worked with a lot of professional guys.
Do you remember Joe Gill? Do you remember Joe Gill with Speedwin Automotive? Joe Gill in
Speedwin, yes.
Right. Yeah. Well, the funny thing is, I moved to California in 91, 92, and I started working at Hot Rod in 98. And we found this machine shop called Superior Automotive in I think it was Glendale. Joe Gill runs and operates to this day with his son and his wife, Arlene. And that's Joe Gill from Speedwin. He moved to California back around, I think, 91 or 90 or something like that. And he's kicking ass out there and we put him in Hot Rod a bunch of times. He built engines and stuff. And Joe. So did you cross paths with Joe back in the day?
No, only at the track. I happened to meet him through some other people.
Sure.
Didn't actually, do any kind of business with him. But yes, I do know who you're talking about.
Yeah, but it is true though. Just the car people. When I was in California, Big Willie Robinson, the Brotherhood of Street Races, that whole thing. He would occasionally get permission from the city of Los Angeles to open up Terminal Island, and there would be Bloods and Crips, guys who ordinarily would be shooting at each other and killing each other. When I moved to LA, I thought, it's very real. Unfortunately, it's nothing I really, I'm thankful I don't have to deal with it. But when I was there they were not holding hands, but cars brought those guys together.
Wow.
Was that in the days of Big Willie?
Yeah. Well, yeah.
And his wife Tamika.
Yes.
And they had that. And I remember all these magazine articles. He was a big, muscular guy with that bowler hat.
Yeah.
And I remember maybe it was a Hot Rod magazine or a Car Craft. There was a picture with the hood up. Yeah. And the caption was an elephant sniffing for rats.
That's right, the 2 tubes. That's right.
Right.
Yeah.
I had those big tubes coming up the front.
Yeah. Popular Hot Rodding. I think they did a feature on the African elephant, the Daytona. Right.
Amazing stuff.
Yeah, but he was very active still. 91-234 Terminal Island was there. It was 1,000 foot. It was shortened up a little bit, and then for whatever reason they closed it down again, et cetera, et cetera. But it was amazing to see Bloods and Crips, ordinarily people who would be shooting at each other, whatever, hanging out and talking cars. And then once they left, boats flew again. But cars bring people together, and that's a great example.
This
if there's
is
any
true. Yeah, that's true. I've run into so many people and met so many people, and the cars that we've built, they're still out there running around. I mean, I've done a lot of cool stuff, and I've met so many wonderful people, just through the business. It's phenomenal. It's a great family. It's a huge extended family.
Yeah.
And it's phenomenal. And there's just so much going on. I thought I was out of it totally, and then my wife got me back into it.
Okay.
I do custom aquariums now. I sold the chassis shop and got into custom aquariums and service.
You don't do that TV show. There's a show about that. Is that you?
Tanked. Yeah. I was on that. I used to be on that show a lot.
Yeah.
On Discovery. Animal Planet. Yeah. Well, it's a Discovery family. Yeah, we did that. And then that show ran its course. I'm still friendly with those guys. But it was so weird, went from one thing to another. It was very, because remember they used to have PRI was here in Orlando.
Yeah, okay, right.
I moved from Long Island down to Florida, and I had found out about PRI, and I called a friend of mine. As a matter of fact, George Cook's Custom Headers.
Okay.
I don't know if you've heard. They're in the Carolinas.
Okay, Cook, yeah.
And I said to Cook, I said, I want to go to PRI. Oh yeah, I'll send you a pass, no problem. So I was like, great. I walked in there. It's the first time I had been to a trade show in years.
Yeah.
You know, and first person I walk up to is Jerry Bickle.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
he looks at me and he goes, "Are you kidding me?" And I'm like, "What do you mean?" He goes, "What are you doing here?" I said, "Well, I live in Florida now. I said, Cook got me a pass. I wanted to come walk around." He goes, "Any truth to the rumor that you mess around with fish tanks and aquariums and tropical fish?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And he goes, "Well, can you explain to me how a chassis guy gets out of the chassis business and gets into aquariums?" So I told him, how it happened.
Yeah.
And
Fabricating.
he he says, "You're the smartest dude I know." I'll tell you how I got into it. Me and the guys from my shop on like Friday nights, we would go to the movies sometimes. And we went and saw a movie called Deuce Bigelow.
Yeah. Sure. Sure.
And they had that big giant tank with the lionfish in it.
Okay. Yeah.
And I said, "You know what? I had a big office. We should put a fish tank in the office." And everybody was like, "Why?" Well, like, why not? Saturday morning, I got up and I went to the local aquarium store and I bought an 80-gallon aquarium, set it up. I killed a bunch of fish. Took months to figure out what to do.
Right.
And
Yeah,
that
no
hobby,
bleach. Right.
yeah. That hobby eventually, when I got out of the chassis business, turned into a business.
Yeah.
And we do design and maintenance and installation and tank moves, things like that. And then we moved down to Florida, and I reopened down here under a different corporate name. And then the television show came along, and my wife and I were watching that. And I'm like, "I know that guy." And she's like, "What do you mean you know that guy?" I said, "Wade King grew up in Comac, Long Island." I said he had a SS 454 Chevelle, 70, SS 454, red with a black interior. She goes, "I figured you would know that."
Yeah.
So I called him up the next day, and he was like, "Oh my God, I can't believe you live in Florida and you play with fish tanks. I'm going to put you on TV." And that's how that happened.
Cool.
So it worked out good, yeah. So we have good customers. I managed to run into celebrity people for some reason. I don't know. I'm on some sort of wavelength. We take care of aquariums for Shaquille O'Neal.
Yeah.
I know the guys from Garage Rehab.
Okay.
And I've hung around with those dudes. I always seem to find TV people. It's pretty weird.
One time at PRI, I was standing there getting a beer. I looked behind me. It's Bill Jenkins, Grumpy.
Wow.
I said, "Make that two." And I said, "Here you go." And he says, "Thank you." So I can tell you about Bill Jenkins a beer.
Nice.
I got a Jenkins story. My wife, back in the day, remember when drag strips used what they called telewriters? The person in the tower,
Okay.
there was a machine that you would write the time slips.
Huh.
And in the ticket booth at the other end, it would write on a slip of paper.
The handwriting would be transferred electronically.
Hey. My wife was the telewriter girl at National Speedway out on the end of Long Island. And she has stories about Jenkins yelling up to the tower, "Hey, can you take a little time off that ticket?" And she said she called him a lech.
Okay. I've heard. Yes. Linda, I've heard that. Yeah.
She has stories about him, about garlets. My wife's got all kinds of stories about old world drag racers that she encountered in her job when she was only, 15, 16 years old, working at National Speedway.
Job, John.
Yeah.
Huh?
How did she land that job?
Her dad knew who was the owner of National.
I forget his name.
I forgot his name. Her father knows him.
Okay.
Well, he passed away now. I'm trying to think of the guy's name. Luckily, I got to actually meet him. I guess it was about 5-6 years ago. They did a thing at National Speedway. They did a reunion, Long Island Dragway and West Hampton Dragway reunion.
Right.
At Englishtown.
Yeah.
And at the time, the manager that had worked out on the island, he called me up and he's like, would you come to Englishtown for the reunion? And I'm like, sure, why not? He goes, I got a surprise for you, but I need you to get on a plane and come on up. So I went up and I wound up getting an award for my chassis shop's contribution to New York's motorsports, in general, along with Nunzi, Scott Shafferoff, the guy that owned National Speedway, a whole bunch of people.
Pat Musey in that mix, probably. Pat Musey in there, probably, or
no, Musey wasn't there because he wasn't a Long Island guy.
oh, okay.
Right.
Canada.
Yeah, he was right from Jersey. So it was all guys that were kind of like Long Island based. We all had shops. George Cook's Custom Headers, all of them. So it was pretty awesome. I was like, wow, that's really cool. That I got that plaque. I have it hanging in the office. It's pretty special to me. That they said that my contribution, the cars that I built, the stuff that I did for people through the years, is something to really think about.
Yeah.
So, awesomeness.
Okay.
Well,
All right.
I think I'm ready to roll.
Oh yeah. So Steve, while I got you in on the format, I'd like to get you back on Motormouth Radio when you get a chance on a Sunday.
Yeah, sure.
I don't know what your schedule is like. If I'm always booking, so
Yeah.
whatever's good for you.
Yeah. If you want, just generally Sundays, 3 from now, something like that. Maybe sometime in mid-May.
Hey, you know what?
Be cool. Yeah. End.
He's gonna book you in now.
Just happen to have my show book right in front of me, so I'll put a post-it note in here for mid-May, and then what I'll do is I'll shoot you an email.
Okay.
And then we can find it.
Hey Steve, are you still in California also? Are you back and forth, or are you just are you back on the East Coast here?
Yeah, here in Massachusetts. Yeah, I moved. I was in LA from 91 through 2006, 7, 8, something like that, whatever it was, and been here in Massachusetts for the last 10 years or so. So I moved back, and I still go there to work from time to time. But and LA was nice. 17 years was good. It was crowded, so I did my part to make it better. I left, but it was great. I had a house there and stuff like that. But it was just a thing where I was self-employed, and I kind of found that trying to get anywhere by day involves way more time than I wanted to spend driving. And hot rods and stuff like that, there was just nowhere to drive them. You had to go out at 3 a.m. to enjoy your car because otherwise there's cars everywhere. So I love Los Angeles, and I was also there for the earthquake, the Northridge Meadows thing. And believe it or not, that it kind of puts a little twist in you once you go through something like that, because you're sitting on a bridge, you're wondering if one happens right now. It was kind of weird, but of course, earthquakes I guess happen everywhere, but not
like there.
Not here so much in Massachusetts. But LA's a great place, but I did my time.
And did you originally grow up in Massachusetts?
Yes.
Originally home for you? Yeah. Okay.
I was born in New York City. I was there till about age 2. Didn't get out much, Washington. But moved from there to Massachusetts from childhood on up. I was next town over. In fact, about 8 miles from where I am right now. We moved there in '67 when I was 3. So sort of returned here. A lot of people think I'm from Los Angeles, but that's 17 years there, which is a third of my life. But
yeah.
That's an experience.
That's a good stretch, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But we've said, like John was saying, it doesn't matter where you started or where you are now. You take your cred with you. So we're all just who we are, just no matter where we are.
Yeah. Well, this thing we're doing right now, the internet. This online thing, virtual. It allows so many people to do so much more than traditionally. Remember what ABC, NBC, CBS. You know what I mean? And that was it. There's maybe 1,000 opportunities to get on TV per year. Really. Now there's millions, you know. But beyond that, working from home is a wonderful thing. I think that, you know, saves marriages, saves lives. You know, I mean, people. I think the stress of driving to and from work. You know, a lot of folks in LA before the earthquake happened were driving to and from, and after the earthquake, a lot of the major bridges broke down. So employers had to learn to be flexible, and that was a sort of a dress rehearsal for this past year with COVID. People working from home, and now the infrastructure, the electronics are such that you pretty much can Zoom and, you know, be in the office but not be there, and that's a great thing.
You know, that's one of the things. One of our good friends out west is Alana Sher. You know, we talk to Alana all the time, and she says that all the time. Like, oh yeah, getting around in these big Chryslers is like, you know, it's a killer. You know, driving on a 405 in a Polara, they get 6 miles to the gallon.
Right.
Yeah, good stuff.
Crazy taxes out there. Their gas taxes are insane.
Yes. Yeah. I remember when
I guess I got to figure out how to do fish tank services through the internet.
Yeah.
Not physically be there.
It's a little tough to do a water change over through Zoom. Can you read the phosphates for me? Yeah, it's kind of cool.
It's crazy.
So, Steve, what's up with the altered wheelbase stuff?
Somebody asked if you still had a specific altered car.
The Fairmont.
Yeah, I've had 3 of them. There was the first one was the Wilshire Shaker Nova. This puppy here. I have to get that thing right. There we go. That one there. And that I owned that for 10 years, something like that. And a fellow in Chicago bought the car, and so it sits indoors in a collection, which is fine. Just race it or drive it. That's fine. But that was about 5 years ago. And then the Rampage, the 63 Dart with the checkerboard roof, the Max Wedge, I brought that to Barrett Jackson, Mohegan Sun 4 years ago, and sold it at the auction. And I currently have the Ford Fairmont, the funny Fairmont, which now finally has the 4.6 mod motor, 4-valve, with 8-stack Australian DC&O electronic Hillborn style fuel injection. Wow. And I drive every day when the weather's decent. In fact, we just had a 60-degree day here in Mass today, and it's about time to break that puppy out. It doesn't get out all the time, but it's good altered wheelbase, you know, the whole that kind of stuff. It's an 81 Fairmont, and that car, you know, I did a Chevy, then a Mopar, and I wanted to do a Ford. So I said, well, I want to find a 65 Mustang Fastback or a 65 Falcon, and, you know, the prices on those things, $10,000 for a core Fairmont, a 2-door post Fairmont, $800 in California, and so that's why I did that. With that, it was cheaper. It was Ford's last 2-door post, the Fairmont 1980. So, you know, and you know, a little bit with a squint, it looks okay. But
no, it's a drop dead cool car. Especially with, you know, leaving the patina of the cut marks. But my favorite part was when you had it in California, you still had the 6-banger in it, but it was an altered wheelbase. So you drive this car like equivalent of a gasser, but with the 6-cylinder in it, and it must have sounded just like nothing.
Yeah, it had a catalytic converter still. That was because in California you had to go through smog every 2 years on any car after 75 and newer. Twice every 2 years you had to go in the chassis dyno with the sniffer, and you put a V8 in that thing, you're either going to take it out or not register the car. So I had to keep the 6-banger in California. When I came here, you know, Massachusetts, it's fairly conservative in a lot of ways, but the emissions laws are pretty wide open. So a car that old, you could run cold if you wanted to. So
right. Yeah,
that's like here in Florida. They don't have any inspection system.
Wow, that's great.
Which, coming from New York, and their inspection system, it's like a double-edged sword for me.
Yeah,
I look at it as, wow, you know, I won't have any issues putting this car on the road, you know, doing the modifications I want to do, not a problem. But due to the fact that they don't have any type of inspection or emissions here, which I don't have a problem with no emissions, it's the inspection side of it.
Yeah.
People here have a tendency to not do any type of maintenance.
Yeah.
You'll be driving on the highway and you'll pull up behind a guy in a 4-door sedan, and the right rear tire is bouncing like a basketball because the shock absorber is just physically there. There's nothing inside it, you know?
Right.
You see cars where the tires are completely out of alignment.
Yeah.
It's insane. They don't do any work, you know?
Another thing too is here in New England, you guys know all about rust, and you know more than a few cars. I mean, there is a rust inspection for any car that gets a sticker, and for the most part, you know, but some cars are so rotten that they probably shouldn't be on the road. Frame rust and that kind of thing that happens up here, And that's the thing where I've had cars actually brake lines fail.
Oh,
Because the rust is so bad, and then you're gonna pull over and catch a ride or whatever it is. But it's always something.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's what always scares me when I go down to the south. Is that I'm always aware of who's around me, and I'm looking at. And I noticed when I was in South Carolina some years ago, visiting, I like, wow, there's a lot of older cars on the road. And I asked my nephew, and he says, well, yeah, got to get inspections. They're cheap to drive, so people just pull stuff out of their yard and they just recycle cars, and no one fixes anything. Like, damn.
Lots of hoopties.
Like, how are you going to feel when your daughter starts driving and she's going to be on the road next to these yahoos? It's like wheels falling off, and yikes.
There's a lot of ridiculous accidents here in Florida. Speed limits are higher. 70 miles an hour is a posted limit almost everywhere, so everybody's going 85, 90.
Yeah.
They got bad brakes, bad shocks and struts. Nobody's doing anything right. You know what I'm saying? You wind up. There's not a day goes by I do not see a car on its roof.
Wow.
One of the other things about Florida is because of the large amount of rain, they don't do sewer systems. They do ditches.
Yeah.
So just about every single road you're on,
you'll
have a shoulder, and then it drops off on both sides.
Right.
And if you lose control, where do you wind up? Upside down in the ditch.
Huh.
So it's the kind of, I had to adapt my driving down here. I constantly am using all three mirrors and watching what's going on. You have to defensively drive around here, People don't use turn signals, but I think that's kind of universal. Nobody uses turn signals anywhere. They cut you off. It's crazy. And then since this COVID thing hit and nobody was driving for a while, everybody started speeding crazy.
Yeah.
And now that the traffic's back, they're not quitting on that.
Right.
I got past. I was doing about 82 on I-75 heading back north. I got passed by an F-350 dually with about a 24 to 26 foot, like a car trailer enclosed. And he went past me at had to be about 95 to 98 miles an hour in the middle lane. He just, woof, see ya. And I'm like, that's really fast for a dually towing a trailer.
Yeah.
It's crazy, but you see it. It happens every day.
So, to change gears, shift gears a little bit, Brian, I was talking with Derek at the shop today.
I got the ratchet.
Did you? I mailed that yesterday.
God.
Yesterday morning.
Insane.
And I went to UPS and I said, I was there about 8 o'clock in the morning. But I said to him, he says, well, how do you want? I said, just ground. I said, it's not a rush. No problem. He goes, okay. It's like 12:12. He goes, yeah, they'll probably get it Thursday. I'm like, wait a minute. Today's Wednesday. Like, this Thursday or next Thursday?
I can't believe we got that fast, especially with all the UPS and FedEx issues that I deal with every day. But that's insane. I came in. It was a little crunched up, but it got here.
All right. Okay. All right, good. I bubble wrapped it. It's in Milwaukee. It's tough. But I was talking to him, and he's from Guyana, so he's a funny guy. And I said, yeah, I said, what I'm going to do when I'm going to take a vacation, I'm going to go down and I'm going to go down to Brian's part of the world. I'm going to meet up with him. I said, we got to go. I said, I want to spend a day on the Matco truck. Because he's always talking, Matco, he loves Matco. I said, I'm going to spend a day on that truck. He goes, oh, his eyes got really wide. He goes, really? You can do that? I'm like, hey, listen, when the big guy, you get allowances,
There you go.
Yeah.
So I got him all jazzed up.
Yeah, come on out and spend the day.
Yeah.
It's never a dull moment in the tool world.
I believe it.
That would be a good field trip.
Yeah, it's a hell of an adventure. I should have a TV show. The stories I would tell you, you would never believe. So
what you got to do is you got to buy yourself 2 GoPros, one in the back, one in the front. Turn them on. Just let them run, and then talk to somebody that knows their way around the editing suite, and start putting stuff up on Facebook. And just like Terry, all of a sudden, you get noticed.
Yeah, I got quite a bit of video, and that's the ultimate. But I had one today where this guy was cussing me out left and right. It was one of our cordless impact drivers, and I don't know if this one has it. Oh no, it's the older one, but it has a high-low switch for the motor, and like I just bought this and this piece of shit, and he's on and on and on and on, and I'm like, whoa, slow down, what's wrong? He goes, it's the gears are busted in it, and he's holding the end of it and squeezing it, and I said, well, why don't you pick one speed, high or low? And he looks at me. What do you mean? I said, well, you're stuck in the middle. So move the switch up, and it works. And he's like, man, I waited all week for you.
And who's the asshole now, jerk?
And you fix cars, and you just
right.
Take a look, but between that and I had a guy that argued with me about his test light, and he said his test light didn't work. So I get it and I go over to the battery and put it, and I said, man, it's just old school, bulb and a clip. I said, well, I don't understand. I said, show me how you were using it. And he goes, all right, and goes over to the car, and he had a wrench laying on the floor of the car, and he grounded the light. And then he takes the thing and says, it doesn't work. And I said, you got to ground it. He goes, I am. It's to metal.
Yeah, it's the metal.
Metal to carpet. I mean.
This guy's a mechanic at a dealership?
Yeah.
You got to be kidding me.
And I had a guy at a dealership, Streamlight flashlight. You click the button twice and it has a SOS, light.
Yeah.
He's over there using it as a test light. I mean, as a timing light on a newer Ford. Yeah. I walked up and I said, "How's that test light?" He goes, "Man, this was the best flashlight I ever bought. It's a flashlight and a light."
Man, you do need a show.
Yeah, and I'm like, I can't make this stuff up, So it's awesome.
You're making me feel guilty now to read a schematic.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but I gotta get ready. I got one more impact to rebuild. Gotta get ready to run credit cards. Steve, I can't wait to hear you on Motormouth, and hopefully one day I get to run into you. And
see you, buddy.
Maryland, we'll go get some crabs and beer.
All right.
Kind of ride around on the truck for the day.
Yeah.
Good. All right.
That would be an episode.
Yes.
What? I know.
Right.
That would be an episode.
We used to have this junkyard called Dollar George, and it was Ellis Wise and George Wise. They were two brothers, and they built a fence right down the middle, and one side was one. And of course, Dollar George, everything was $1.
Right.
You just walk in there. But he had a Christine. He had 58 Plymouth. He had a whole front clip.
Wow.
One of those cars, and like you said, it was one of those things that he would never sell. It just sat there because when that movie came out and they were looking for parts, he was waiting to get that $1 million for part, And unfortunately, all that stuff is gone. But I always wondered whatever happened to that thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Talk about that was insane. But that was a hell of a junkyard going through there, man. Stuff you'd find.
Yeah, there are a lot of
there's a guy in New York that has probably the best example of Christine. He's on Long Island.
Yeah.
Forget his name. He takes it to all of these different shows, and he goes to a lot of stuff with he's got a couple of cars. He's got the Torino with the stripe.
Starsky and Hutch.
Starsky and Hutch, and he's really good friends with the guys from the show.
Oh, okay.
Ford actually made that car, right? You could order that.
They did, yeah.
You could order that.
Starsky and Hutch Special was really a car. Yeah.
Yeah. I had a neighbor that had a green one. He had a green. When I lived in Oklahoma, he had a green one.
Was it resprayed?
No.
Okay, because those
it was green.
Yeah, they were sprayed white and then red afterwards. It was a very strange two-step, and they were built in Chicago only, and there's 1,000 of them. Yeah, everything from the 302 to the 460, but it was an appearance. No mags, no lifted trail, but the Starsky and Hutch Special was a real thing.
Yeah, he had a green one. It was like a very similar to like the Bullet car, the Bullet green.
Okay,
Island green.
Yeah, it was very similar. I remember that.
Nice color.
I used to, man. My dad had his company car was a LTD. It was and it was like the olive gray color. It was a police car. You know, it was from the service, Secret Service, and it was just a government car. You know, bench seat. You know, just nothing fancy. And that guy came whipping through the neighborhood one day and doing the Rockford slide and the Starsky and Hutch car. And as my old man came around the corner, he saw that, and my dad threw the real bubble up on top of the car and chewed his ass out. And I sat there the whole time like, oh my God, I can't, you know. But those were the good old days.
That's funny.
You know, I saw the 65 era Batmobile 2 days ago.
Oh, cool.
There's a guy down here that's got one. He was getting off the highway. I didn't see it. There was a tractor trailer, and I didn't notice it until after I got past the tractor trailer, and he was getting off the highway, and I'm like, oh my God, it's the Batmobile. And this thing
I actually got the drive one of the original.
This one was from 50, 60 feet.
Yeah.
It was absolutely perfect.
There are some good reproductions, yeah.
It had the Deist parachutes on the back.
Right.
The whole deal. I'm like, whoa. But and the next exit was too far away for me to double back and try and find this guy. Yeah. You know? So I was like,
crazy.
Oh my God, look at that, the Batmobile driving through Tampa.
It's an hour from midnight, so I'm going to punch out. But I appreciate being on the show, and
we appreciate you being here.
Yeah.
Yep. Awesome. Thanks a lot, Steve. Appreciate it. Can't wait to see your next model.
Yeah, great. I'll put it on Instagram.
We'll follow you on Instagram, and I'll reach out to you mid-May, and we'll get you back on the radio, and we'll just keep this party rolling.
All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right. Very good.
I'll see you guys.
All right, guys. So for Plane and Traffic, Ray Guarino with Chassis John, Matt Goman Bryan, and the just left Steve Magnante. And we'll be back next week, and we'll do it again.
He didn't get to say his. I mean,
you know what? I asked him on the radio show last time for his line, and he didn't catch on what I was saying. So I fed it to him. So I'll do it. He says, "Hasta mañana."
Yeah, I said to myself, I was gonna say to him when the show was over, "What do you say when you're signing off?"
You know, and John, and I learned this.
I totally forgot.
I mean, I do it with Chris every week because he does it all the time. But I learned if you do something like that with somebody, even when they know it, chances are they're not going to do it. They're not going to know it. Because people don't think like you're thinking a lot of times. It happens all the time. So it's kind of like being a lawyer. You don't ask a question unless you know the answer. So usually
I look at it as he's the source,
right?
We're the viewer.
Exactly.
We expect it because we're the viewer.
Exactly.
And,
whatever. But in his mind, he may be programmed like he does that on the TV show when there's a camera on him. So now he's not in that realm.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't think in casual encounters that he says that.
Right. No, I don't think so. But what were you gonna say, Brian?
Oh no! We had a guy that we got one of those Batmobiles here when the guy did. Beautiful car, and it was actually on that TV show where they appraised.
Yes, I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah, and that guy. I mean, like I said, he's always up here at our cruise day and so forth. And I was so mad because when they had that lady on there, because he didn't have the motor detailed. Right. It was just it's a stock motor. It has a little cam in it or whatever, but it's nothing fancy. And she beat him up so bad. But the whole thing with the Batmobile was turbine. I mean, it was.
It was the rest of it. It was the outside
turbine motor in the back. You
gotta wonder. You gotta wonder. Did the original TV Batmobile have any kind of niceties under the hood?
Well, I'll tell you something.
Right.
I will tell you. I drove car number 6 out of Captree. We did a commercial, and that car had a 390 in it that should have been committed to death. That car, the motor was so beat. It was. And you open it, we had it was a piece of crap. The motor was just.
Because
Yeah.
I've seen other videos of other cars, like the Tumbler.
Oh yeah, right.
And and they had that hood open, and they showed some close-up shots. I mean, that thing was a literal piece of shit.
Yeah. Well, the original Batmobile,
all
you never saw that hood open in the show. It was never about the car, the engine. Really, it was about.
Well, I know that, but it was jet powered. I mean, that's it had, because this guy had the propane tank. He'd shoot flame. I mean, he shoots flames out of it. And so I wrote him and said, you beat this guy up over because he didn't have nice valve covers on his engine.
Right.
Car had nothing to do with a real motor because it was a jet motor. It was a turbine. And that's what he had the flame. But it was just crazy. But it's funny. He was driving down the road and somebody hit him.
Oh.
Hit the car, and he ended up. The guy drove off, and he chased in the Batmobile.
Nice.
The police came and get him, and he's on the phone. He's on the bat phone saying, "I'm in the Batmobile, just got hit, and I'm chasing the guy." So
I wonder if he
it's
turned
one
on
of the
that,
craziest stories.
he turned on that
Him
little
chasing
red light
after
up
the
on
guy.
top.
Yeah.
Can you imagine being chased by the Batmobile?
And you beat them.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Brian,
I've seen quite a few of those cars. The Barris built, and they had no detail on the hood at all.
Yeah, no. This one's number 6 certainly did not. One more tool question, Brian. I saw this week Matco it hit with the new line of the air powered brake bleeders.
Yep.
I used mine today. I used my who's mine made by?
Mighty Vac? No, not Mighty Vac.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. It works, but I could be more impressed by it. So I'm looking. The one thing I like about the one Matco one, there's a cap on top of so you can like a quick release, because I got to unscrew mine. It's a pain in the ass.
That's what kills yours. That's what kills it. It crushes that seal and it doesn't create enough vacuum. It kills the pumping.
So yeah. Well, my question was, what's your take on these new ones that Matco came out with? Are they?
Well, I've sold about 4 of them, and so far I haven't heard anything, and that's usually a good thing.
I saw 2 different ones. One that looked like it almost looked like a handheld. Like you're holding a trigger, like a handle of a gun, and the other one was more like my Mighty Vac. It was more of a canister.
Right. The smaller one, the only one that I've had I've actually had. I think I have one that was traded in for the bigger one, just because the guy, once they suck fluid, they're trash. No matter what. I mean, you don't want to suck any fluid through them because it just kills.
That's like a hand bleeder too. Once you get fluid,
And this guy, he said that he had to keep, stopping to drain the thing.
Still too high.
The bigger, yeah,
right.
That's why he wanted the bigger one, and so he traded up. But I mean, like I said, I'm at the point where I sell enough of them. I keep 3 on the truck.
Keep your ear to this grindstone. Let me know what you think. What the consensus is, because
I haven't gotten any bad. Usually the next week I hear if there's a problem, I hear it right away.
Well, then again, you got guys who put test lights on wrenches, so
True.
I mean, just saying here,
I got guys that take the battery saver and plug it into the cigarette lighter of the car, then plug it into the OBD2, and then they disconnect the battery and wonder why it doesn't hold memory. I do have some rocket scientists. Yeah.
Very true.
So, but so far, I haven't had any complaints on the big one yet.
All right.
And the only one I had on the small one, I sold 3 or 4 of the small ones, and the only one everybody said it just filled up too fast.
Ah.
And
well, again, I mean, you can. I mean, a lot. I was actually showing this to the guy, and these guys today. I set it up on the car. I'm working on that caddy. I turned a spackle bucket over, and I'm sitting on the bucket. I said, "See, Derek, this is the way Americans work." I said, "We'll spend a couple $100 on a tool that does the job for us, and we get paid." He's like, "Whoa, good idea, good idea." I'm like, "That's how Americans do it." you buy the tool that does the work. But I just wasn't happy. I thought it was pulling. I don't know. It could be the car. All those tools. I got a whole boatload of different brake bleeding tools in my arsenal, and they all work differently on different cars. So
Yeah.
There's no real.
No, those the Mighty Vac ones. Like I said, one of the biggest things from unscrewing the bucket on that seal gets flattened, and it does not create. You lose some of your vacuum on that.
It almost makes you want to mount the gauge on the damn thing.
Yeah, and like I said, you can rebuild them, but they're never the same.
I had trouble with my on-off switch for the air.
Yeah.
I actually had to take it apart, and then I put it back together, and it worked worse. It just was in bypass mode. So I took it apart again, and I don't remember what I did, but I got it to work the second time. But
Boy, I'm like old school. I'll do the hand bleeding of the master.
right. Oh yeah, I'll always bench bleed a master.
And then I have this thing that I bought for like $4. It's about a 3-foot vinyl hose
with the valve in it
that goes over the bleeder screw.
Right.
And it connects to a container about this big that's vented, and it's got a magnet attached to it. So you stick it up on the fender up above the brakes.
The magnet's nice, yeah.
And then you just gently press the brake pedal.
Right.
And then you see the fluid come up, and you see the air bubbles. And when it's a solid line of fluid, you tighten the bleeder valve, and you got a rock hard pedal. And if it's on my race car, I push the pedal down, and I got 1,400 psi.
Yeah.
Done.
Yeah.
No Mighty Vac squeeze toys. No air powered nothing.
I'll tell you, one of the other tools I bought is called a Phoenix reverse bleeder.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the theory is, it's a fluid dynamics. Air wants to rise in fluid. It doesn't want to sink. So when you force fluid down to expel air, there's always air that wants to go back the other way, and that's how you get the air bubbles trapped in the lines. So the reverse bleeder is you put it on the wheel, on either the caliper or the wheel cylinder, and you inject the fluid into the port at the wheel, and it'll go out and rise in the master cylinder. So you have to suck the master cylinder, dry first. Yeah. And that works well on certain cars too. That's
we had to use those on hydraulic clutch line. The hydraulic.
Yeah.
Sometimes it was just a pain on the 911s,
right?
Air 4s and so forth. It was a pain in the ass to get the all the air out of the clutch lines.
Right.
And on the turbos, especially if it was hot, it just was a pain, and you just reverse bleed them.
Right.
And you were down the road. Other than that, you were spending all day playing around with it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that was a good system.
Yeah.
That was another one you don't want to suck fluid. You don't want to have it going the wrong way, because you could go either way with that gun.
Okay, all right. I've only used it one way. Yeah.
Yeah, but you could go either way, and you always wanted to make sure you were pushing or pulling. You just want to make sure you were going the right way with the fluid.
Right.
Because once the fluid goes through that, it's never the same.
Yeah.
So.
All
right, guys.
Till next week.
So, yep. Fun filled and excitement.
Yep. Go do your building.
Yeah, you got it. I'll see you guys. Take care.